you're going to pay somewhere between 20 and 40% less in those other countries. Same exact drug, made by the same exact company.
The system is breaking down under Joe Biden's powder keg of corruption.
What we learned by bringing in Hunter Biden's business partner is that the President Biden had lied to the American public. He got on conference calls when his son was selling the brand with his clients. He literally went to dinners, which we never knew. And after the dinners, his son got a Porsche and then more than $3 million. Now, I know CNN didn't want to do fact checks on everything that I laid out. What was interesting was the headline, but more interesting in the fact checks, it was all true. They had to acknowledge that every alleged accusation that put us into impeachment inquiry is true.
Across the United States, Soros puppets and power whores are opting to violate their constitutional oaths, to suspend the Bill of Rights in favor of feverishly clawing for the power and funds stirred up by emergency declarations rather than finding real solutions for their constituents.
This public health order has also sparked 3 lawsuits.
Whether it's the governor, whether it's somebody in our legislature, does not have the authority to impinge on your rights given under the United States Constitution.
In Oakland, California, Mayor Sheng Tao is threatening to use an emergency declaration to install a new police chief. And in Vista, California, Mayor Joe Franklin is considering declaring an emergency over the homeless situation, while the Soros Foundation retreats from Europe and more than a dozen prosecutors linked to Soros-funded campaign committees or organizations in the United States have left office after resigning, either losing re-election or being removed. Hunter Biden is indicted by a special counsel on felony gun charges, and the COVID rollout stumbles to roll down the tracks.
Tell everybody, don't rely on the fact that you had a vaccine in the past. It will not help you this time around.
Joe Biden and his unscrupulous, failing regime gaslight the country into a propagandized hellscape out of sheer panic.
How confident are you that there will be no evidence that incriminates President Biden and Hunter's business dealings as this goes forward?
So you see Republicans in Congress, right? They have spent all year investigating the president. That's what they've spent all year doing, and have turned up with no evidence. None.
There is a new CNN poll that shows, if we could put that up, 61% of the American people think that Biden had at least some involvement in Hunter Biden's business dealings while he served as vice president.
Right. We know that, he was on a phone one time or he had dinner one time. And what Republicans have done is said, see, there's the evidence. He was in the room. He was at dinner. He was on the phone. He spoke to his son. But there has been no evidence at all. Zero.
Why was the president at those meetings on those phone calls?
He calls his son every day to check in. He calls his other family members to check in to see how they're doing. He loves them. They're a tight-knit family.
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blunt, look, I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
No, you're not. We're here reporting on it today.
I'm not sure how you know what the American people think, but here's what they might wonder. Actually, if you're a federal prosecutor, you would be asking yourself, how can there not have been an indictment for FARA violation against Hunter Biden?
I hate the phrase public servants, but it is true.
Now that deep state tool Joe Biden has been thrown to the wolves, the country will enter a state of suspension where foreign power infiltration can thrive. And once it's all said and done, Joe Biden will go down as the greatest national security threat the United States has ever endured.
Recent actions from the Biden administration have made it clear that they are not only itching to create a digital dollar, but they're willing to trade Americans' right to financial privacy for a surveillance-style CBDC.
John Bound reporting.
We'll be back. Well, the answer to tyranny. And I salute you all. Woo! Okay, I say this all the time because it's true. There's a quickening. Things get more insane every day, every week, every month, every year. But every few weeks, there's a particular day that goes, whoa, this gives me chills. So I particularly over-prepared. We've had some guests coming up today, but I canceled them. So we got time to cover all this and take your calls as well. So let me go ahead and just give you the little synopsis of each stack, and then we'll plow through these as we take calls today. And I'm just gonna go into these without the most important up front, because what's most important is objective, obviously. And I think the World War III escalation is probably the biggest one, but let's just start here, okay? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 stacks. 28 stacks. Each one of the articles over the top, incredibly important. I mean, it is wild. So here's the bottom line before I plow into it. Hard times make strong men make good men make weak men make bad times. Hence the cycle. People get lazy, they get decadent, they get dumb. The more engaged people that came before them build the civilization, they inherit it and they flush it down the toilet. And on average, we can't deny IQs dropping, sperm counts dropping, laziness exploding. We're in a lot of trouble. And you're not self-sufficient, myself included. I am extremely self-sufficient compared to the average man. Compared to my dad's dad, I talked a lot about it. He couldn't just skin a buck or run a trot line. He could, CPA anything he needed to, shoot a deer running at, 243 at 500 yards in the neck. He could run electricity. He could fix a combine with rubber bands and a piece of tin can. He'd walk out at lunch, go in the woods, shoot a couple squirrels, cut them up in minutes, grill them. He could butcher a cow faster than anybody ever seen. Shoot it in the head with a 22, haul it up by a chain. 4 hours later, you got a whole butchered cow. I mean, just badass. And he could drop bombs out of a B-17 on the Germans as the captain. I mean, he just was what John Wayne wished he was. Wish you could have seen my dad's dad. A real spectacle, folks. People, he walked in the room and was like, whoa, there's the boss is here. I mean, jet black hair, big shining blue eyes. And you don't make them like that anymore, do you? No, ladies and gentlemen. And you look at me, and I'm in the top 110% of overall general knowledge and how to do things, and I'm nothing compared to Jerry Jones. But the point is, that's the slide of humanity, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we've become. And we have to admit we've fallen if we're ever going to stand back up. All right. Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. And let's talk about it. This story came out last week, and I only mentioned it for like 30 seconds and dropped the ball. This could be the entire 4 hours right here. The French government, and you know they're doing this just to hold Apple hostage and get a bunch of the money. They're not doing it because they care. Maybe the scientists do, but not the government itself. Goes, oh my God, the new iPhone has way more radiation than the other ones, so do these droids, and it's causing massive illnesses and cancer in rats. Now they're up to like iPhone, whatever, but the point is, yeah, because it's 5G enabled. Now, we already had the studies 10 years ago when they were studying 5G that it's way worse than regular cell phone radiation. It's like saying, do you smoke light filtered cigarettes or do you inhale cigars? You're going to get lung cancer quicker inhaling cigars than smoking light cigarettes. They're still both bad. So previous cell phone radiation is like a light cigarette compared to having a giant Winston Churchill Cuban cigar you're inhaling. You do that, you're going to get cancer. Apple, it's now been caught sending out memos to their employees to cover this up. And it's going to be just like cigarettes. They knew cigarettes gave you cancer 150 years ago. They tell smokers, you're going to get rot lung, you keep doing that, and that's what doctors called it. You're going to get rot gut, you keep drinking 2 bottles of whiskey a day, boy. The doctor just knew it ate your guts out. They didn't have the fancy names for cancer. They didn't have MRIs. But they knew, boy, you keep drinking 2 bottles of moonshine a day, you're going to get rot gut and die. Why'd Billy die? Why, he kept drinking too much whiskey, rotted holes in his gut. So there's that stack right here. That's a pretty big deal, huh? And you know, it's a perfect metaphor or parallel to everything else. How do the globalists think they're going to use DU all over the world and not die themselves? I saw a CNN piece. They go, oh, the Russians claim DU is dangerous, but it's not. It's only mildly radioactive, but it's tiny particles that go into your cell nuclei and destroy the DNA and give you instant cancer. It's the same thing with all of this. The atrazine, the water, all of it. The globalists let it happen to us. They brag how it's sterilizing us and bending our gender, but they're being hit by it too. That's why for World War I, they stopped using nerve gas, at least publicly. We used some of it in Vietnam, because a lot of times the wind would change and blow right back on you. That's where the term blowback comes from. But the average leftist globalist, they don't think second order, third order development. They're not actually following a dialectic. They use dialectics on us, but they don't go by the same rules they have for us. They know how to manipulate us using dialectics, but then they can't look out and see how all these waves are going to combine and what they're going to form. So that's a pretty important stack, and we're going to be hitting that. Now, let's move on to this stack. The deputy head of the UN, Secretary General, who's famously came out and said, oh, we censor everybody, we control the web last year. She's given a new speech. We've got excerpts of it. She said, well, we got to stop Elon Musk because we've got to censor and control. We can't have people questioning COVID disinfo or migration disinfo or war disinfo. But everything they say has been a lie. Everything we've said has pretty much turned out to be accurate because we're actually researching. So the very people that are lying to you want to silence you, not for disinformation, but because you're countering their disinformation, their lies. Well, look at this. South Korea begins paying out millions to vaccine of mRNA jabs from people who died. South Korea begins paying out millions to victims of mRNA jabs. South Korean government to pay up to $22,000 for post-COVID jab deaths. CDC study confirms COVID jab lowers male life expectancy by 24 years. UN declares war against COVID and climate change misinformation. Got the video of her saying it. That's coming up. So much more we're going to be getting to today on this very important subject. Major hospitals issue updated COVID vaccine mandates for caregivers. Going to fire more healthcare workers if they don't go along. So there's that stack. Now, this is not the biggest news yet. I'm going to get to that in a moment. In my humble opinion, you can call in and give me your view. What's the most important of all the stuff I've covered to bring up any topic you'd like. Oh, look at this little stack. This is kind of important. Artificial intelligence raises risk of extinction, experts say in new warning. Top watchdog scientific group warns that what they're already seeing will end up collapsing society, and the collapse will cause giant wars and kill everyone, they estimate. It's not a possibility, it's a probability, as in probably going to happen. Risk of extinction by AI should be a global priority, say experts. London Guardian. Mitigating the risk of extinction as the capabilities of AI grow, so do calls for regulation. That's only because they don't want you to have access to it. I've got a bunch of weather control news that's pretty amazing. There's just so much. That's all here. Okay, so we've got that. Of course, then we have a lot of just every hour or two, there's some new train derailment or a food plant blowing up or giant fires everywhere. The police catch the arsonist doing it, but it's back in the newspaper. Train car carrying toxic acid explodes in Nebraska rail yard. Evacuation orders issued for 4-mile radius. Huge amount of smoke fills the sky, causing burning eyes, people getting sick. We've got a huge stack on human trafficking run by the U.S. government. That's some of the news. So we've covered 6 or 7 stacks. Let me continue here what we're going to be covering. Elon Musk transfers partial control to Starlink satellite system to U.S. authorities. See, what does that mean to you? It means a lot to me. I know exactly what it means the minute I saw it. And even before I began to read other top political and military analyst opinion and analysis, I knew what they were going to say because it's true. On its face, if you have wide spectrum analysis and understanding, you know exactly what's going on. Because I knew what happened a year ago, not what the ADL said last week, not what CNN said when they called for Musk arrest, but what the Pentagon admitted went on last year. The Pentagon said don't give long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine. Don't give F-16s or Abrams tanks. That will lead the threat continuum up, and the Russians will then attack NATO as they said they would. So he turned on Starlink, gave them a bunch of Starlinks for their defensive operations and humanitarian aid. But then it wasn't Elon Musk, the way the media spun it. Oh, look, he's a traitor. He turned off the Starlink in the Black Sea when they were going to attack the Russian fleet on their territory in Russia. Pearl Harbor. A major escalation. No, if you read what was said in the book and what the State Department confirmed and why Blinken wouldn't criticize Musk on CNN when they were calling for his arrest with Jake Tapper, Musk was in consultation with the Pentagon, the State Department, the White House, and the Russians in multi-hour-long meetings when it was discovered that the Ukrainians had activated Starlink in the Black Sea and they could see the boats traveling, the drone boats, which was over a half-a-day journey at night to attack the ships. So Elon Musk is up at night. Not these other disconnected executives. Wait, only sleeps 4 hours a day. It's confirmed. I know people that know him. Not lionizing him, which is true. He tells them if there's escalation, call me. He gets a call by his assistant. He gets up. Sir, we see 22 surface boats that follow the same signature of the ship drones with Starlink traveling, and we can track where they're going. They're going to Sebastopol, and they're going to try to sink the Russian fleet. Musk, not the Pentagon, gets on the phone to the Pentagon and says, are you aware? They go, no. They get the White House on the line and the State Department and wake up Blinken, and they go, oh my God, the Russians will attack NATO if we do this. It's on Russian territory. Because that was the policy, then was not do it. Now they've changed the policy. Cruise missiles have been raining down on that port. I mean, it's on, folks. And that's what I said last week. I said Musk is not a, quote, traitor to America. And I'm not his official apologist. I just follow the news here. Musk called and said, are you aware of this attack that's obviously happening? Because any idiot could see what was going on. What executives actually, well, executives used to actually work like that. That's why we haven't blown ourselves up yet. But now everybody's just laughing and giggling, and it's funny, and the president can't put 2 words together, neither can the vice president. It's, you know, you got Alexander Soros stumbling around on, obviously, methamphetamine, and it's all cutesy and fun. And then they turn around a year later and blame him for not attacking. And now the policy's changed, and Elon Musk said, fine, Starlink's yours. Because he knows U.S. government groups funded him to put those satellites in, and it is a cover for a weapon system. Oh, he's super deep state. Just not the deep state wants to blow everybody up, says you should have more children, says we should go off-world, all that's true. So he's kind of the New World Order light. You're like, well, he's still bad. Okay, well, then we'll just go New World Order heavy. And you'll have this guy, Alexander Soros, running things. You think he'll be up in the middle of the night stopping a Russian Armageddon? No. In fact, Sean Penn says, let's just have a nuclear war. It's cute. It's fun. It's powerful. Because Sean Penn and Alexander Soros could not find their wart-covered asses with both hands. They don't read RAND Corporation threat assessments. They don't know about threat escalation ladders. They don't know war doctrine. They don't know jack diddly squat. But how to run around and defund police and implode borders and ship in fentanyl and promote pedophilia and destroy civilization. So this is our top story. Then I'm going to move back into all the others, and I haven't mentioned 1/3 of them yet. But it is crazy. So let's go over it right now. And as soon as I saw this morning, when I got up at 5 a.m., went and got a coffee, sat down at my desktop, punched up Twitter, typed in Elon Musk, which I do multiple times a day, and the first thing popped up was this, and it was like a in the stomach, because I got family, and by extension, your family. And I went, oh my God, that means they're about to use all of his Starlink to direct all the attacks, and he's just said fine and passed on it. And then I went and read what the military analysts and the reporters are all saying instantly. Alert, major war escalation may be about to happen. Oh, think so? It already happened with those cruise missiles. Already happened, Jim Ferguson. There is no doubt that Elon Musk may have prevented a retaliatory nuclear strike from Russia after Ukraine attempted to sink the Black Sea Fleet using Starlink satellite services and drone boats. The U.S. military has now been given control of Starlink and thereby the Ukrainians. We can be certain the Ukrainians will do whatever they can to provoke Russia further and drag the rest of the world into World War III. Expect further massive drone attacks upon Russian infrastructure in the very near future and everything that this entails. The threat of nuclear war has now increased by a significant margin. The globalist parasites need another distraction as the masses awaken. They fear the people. By provoking a major escalation, they will attempt to engineer increase fear and thereby control the masses. You can be sure the World Economic Forum are involved. Good point, Jim. Hey. But it's already escalated.
Hey.
So, this is not about Elon Musk. It is, but it's not about a defense of him. I want people to get past that, whether you like him or not. It's about understanding the continuum. Like, one part of this that's important is a side issue, but important to understand things work. That's how the globalists work. They recycle every story. So Elon Musk goes, tells the Pentagon, hey, you lazy asses, are you aware like 20-something boats are cruising out to attack? It's clearly an attack, and you said you didn't want that. And they go, oh, you're right, let's stop that. Then a year later, they turn around and blame him and say he's a traitor, which is politically expedient. And Musk just goes, okay, you want World War III, here's the codes. Hell, they're your satellites anyways, and we're off the races. It's just understanding how that works. When you see a story, how they spin and twist everything. All right, we got so much more. I'll tell you all about it when we come back. Tell everybody you know, please tune in while we still can. We are living in totally insane times. We're going to plunge into so much of the news and some good news. Here in a moment, Republican introduces bill to ban Federal Reserve from creating central bank digital currency. Congressional witnesses, liberals, citing corporations to keep wages down via mass immigration. Oh, think so? Denver homeless camp features pop-up bar with rentable prostitution tents. James O'Keefe goes to Lahaina, Maui, makes massive discoveries. Abortion doctor leaves Congress speechless. More on the COVID tyranny rollout. McCarthy melts down, file the effing motion to vacate the chair and remove him. The open border news is the biggest yet. Charges dropped for 2 of 3 TSA agents caught on video stealing passengers' cash out of their wallets in Miami. That's how corruption works, folks. It grows in pockets and then it takes over. Then it spreads. We're going to jump into that news in a moment, but I've got some really exciting news for viewers and listeners. You know our information is game-changing. You know it's some of the most accurate research out there. And we're only here because of you. And yes, we're trying to build up enough funds. The bankruptcy looks like it's going well, but barely squeaking over. It's a reorganization. I'm trying to get funding to get crews back and hire more reporters and be able to be at the border more, and the RNC and the DNC and Bohemian Grove and Skull and Bones and Davos and Bilderberg. So you'll see your investment pay off here on the air. Your purchases is what makes all this possible. We're not funded by the globalists, the billionaires, Soros, foundations, any of them. We're funded by you. But that's half the equation. The really important half is the products we've got. And all these products have been sold out for a long time. They're finally all three back in stock. DNA Force Plus, Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula, and Real Red Pill. Now, Real Red Pill was sold out for over 2+ years because of supply chain breakdowns. A limited supply came in 3 or 4 months ago. It sold out in like a month. We got a bigger supply in, but still not as big as I'd like because we barely had the money to even make the purchase. We're digging out of that hole. What does the Real Red Pill do? Well, I was in a medical clinic getting my blood tested and stuff at a top lab here in Texas 10 years ago, 9 years ago when I was 40. Hadn't been to a doctor in a long time. He became highly recommended from my good buddy, a sports enthusiast, Shane Steiner. And I had this medical doctor that owns clinics all over Texas. He's a top guy with 3 medical degrees. And he said, you should take this supplement. He said, all the stuff that you got is important. You got prescription stuff, but you don't need that. You need this. And I basically went and made our own version, a little bit stronger. And it's got pregnenolone, that's the precursor to all hormones. Without getting into a long diatribe, all these estrogen and other mimickers of hormones is what the scientists tell me. Even if you're producing enough pregnenolone, your body, that's what your body makes all the hormones with. It's the precursor. It's a hormone. Your body can't get it, even if it's making it, because it's bound with all the chemicals that are in the food and water. The one ingredient in this that's the most important is pregnenolone, but it's got dozens and dozens of large doses of things in it, like folic acid and then the amino acid with it, so that it gets translated into your blood, because particularly white people, there's 4 genes involved in it. I've had my genetics tested, 3 of them are broken. So I get like 12% of it translated out. So my body does really good mitochondrial energy production, but it can't translate out of the cell. And most Northern Europeans are like that, but you can be black, it helps you too. But on average, black people do not have that broken gene. And when you look at black folks, they're tough, they're strong on average, and no one's gonna deny it. It's the folic acid and the amino acid. Their gene isn't broken, they get basically 100% production. White people are a mutation. And black folks got some of their genetic problems too, but the point is, white people particularly need pregnenolone, and you need the folic acid, the amino acid that's with it, because most people can't process, who are white, all the folic acid. And again, I'm not a scientist, this is what scientists explain to me. And then it's got all these other trace elements that the mainline sciences aren't that important, but the real science shows are more, like copper. It's got everything you need. Real Red Pill Plus back in stock, and it's a fundraiser. It's a no-brainer. Just go get Real Red Pill Plus. It's discounted right now, 25%, InfoWarsStore.com. And this is a multi-month supply. You take 1 pill a day. Now, the doctor did tell me, he said, and then back then when I got on, I first lost a lot of weight, he goes, this will boost your testosterone. Just know this. You already got pattern baldness, your hair is going to fall out. So you can take things to mitigate that as well. But it's that real, okay? Doesn't do that to women. And it just accelerates it a little, because it's real, folks. It's not this is not a joke, okay? This is real. This is powerful. Real Red Pill Plus, InfoWarsStore.com. I don't have to tell you how powerful turmeric is. Regular 5% raw turmeric, you know, with like curry or whatever, tastes great for you. It's 5%. You'd have to eat like 20 bowls, I guess, of an average serving of curry for one of these pills. It's curcuminoid. It's concentrated with a bunch of other curcuminoid-style plants that the scientists say supercharge it. It's the best turmeric formula out there, hands down, because nobody else wants to put the money into it. InfoWarsStore.com and DNA Force Plus. I'll tell you about PQQ or CoQ10 and what it does for your telomeres, your cells, cleans out your blood. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. So that is the trifecta there, ladies and gentlemen. And get a book, get a film, get a t-shirt. We need your support. to stay on air, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate your support and how much I thank you. Okay, let me do this. I already covered 7 stacks and just mentioned them, but I need to drill into them. And then I was going off into all the other headlines that are all just as important in ways. They all feed into the same morass. So let me do this. Let me hit the CBDC news, it's big. And then the open border news when we come back. We're not going to break yet. And then I'm going to get next hour before I open the phones up to this big stack that is the ADL, and which is Mossad. In fact, it's the group that created Israel and created Mossad. So this is actually the boss of the Mossad. And the head of the ADL is in a lot of trouble right now, so his employee, Benjamin Netanyahu, is on an airplane to go meet with Elon Musk in Silicon Valley this weekend. So the folks that run that show are getting ready to make some major moves. And I think if Musk doesn't roll over, which he's starting to do, he handed over Starlink to the Pentagon, and I think he'll probably bring censorship back. But they say Musk says he has Asperger's, and once he decides to do something, he can't back down. He says he's very aggressive once you mess with him. He's not back down yet. I think they'll probably kill Musk before they kill Trump. In fact, I think if I was a betting man on Vegas, I'd bet 60% chance Musk is dead within 12 months. There you go. So if you want to know about the ADL and about all of this and really understand what's happening with this group, I will explain it at the start of the next hour at 6 after. And this is not being an apologist for Jews. It's critical to understanding what's going on to not make this about Jews. This is about a mafia that controls the banking system, that controls the Jews in Israel, and is using them as guinea pigs for Pfizer and Moderna, that is declaring martial law in Israel with this new legislation, and the majority of Jews in Israel are against it. So all I'm saying is, this is a very sophisticated plan. By making the New World Order takeover Jewish and putting the Jews forward, the ADL saying they represent Jews, it creates a dialectic where then the Jews will be attacked. It's very sick, but we've decoded it. And we can all come together and stop this and await the return of the Messiah together instead of killing each other. We'll be right back. All right, let's get into this right now. Look, if they get the central bank digital currencies in that the EU is putting in, the UN's pushing, all standardized by the IMF, the World Bank, Bill Gates, the vaccine passport, the social credit score, the carbon tax, universal basic income, you will own nothing. You will like it. You'll only be able to spend the money and rent things they want you to have. You'll get 3 pairs of clothing a year. You'll eat bugs. You'll drink sewage. That's not me. I know that sounds crazy. But you have to move the Overton window. You want a nice house and a 2-car garage and a swimming pool and health care and take care of your family and go on a couple of vacations. No. You're going to drink sewage and eat bugs and you don't like it. They are lowering your expectations. And so they're coming to the end of their big globalist bubble. And they're in full and complete panic mode because they know the world's awakened to them and their agenda of the climate emergency and the carbon taxes and their excuse to bring in the replacement as the old system collapses, as we go into worldwide depression, which they've done in all these different other countries that were once wealthy just as much as the U.S., as Tucker Carlson just went and documented in South America. Argentina. They should say as rich as an Argentine until the 1970s. They were per capita more wealthy than Americans in Argentina. Now they're a hellhole, only rivaled by Venezuela. That was the second richest country in this hemisphere. Not us. We just started getting rich after World War II. But as soon as they got socialism and the globalists in there, it was bye-bye success story. So when the bankers get this in, they can run every aspect of your life, and I've played the head of the IMF, the head of the World Bank, the head of the EU, the deputy head of the EU, the head of the UN, the deputy head of the UN. I played them all here ad nauseum, saying we're bringing in world government. Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, that really runs the show, we're going to control your life with this. Close quote. That's throwing down the gauntlet. I don't know about you, but if I came home to my wife and I said, listen, I run the show and I'm the boss here, and I'm going to tell you everything you do, and you're going to follow exactly what I say, she'd be gone like that. Now, she respects me. She listens to me. I am the captain. Make no mistake. But because she knows that I knows the grindstone to be the best I can be and to have the best advice and the best ideas, and she's seen me right over and over and over again. So 95% of the time, my wife defers to me. What is the decision we should make? She comes to me, what should we do here? Because she respects me and she knows I love her. But Larry Fink says he wants you poor. He says there's too many people himself. He doesn't like you. And he's saying, we're going to control your behavior and cut off your resources and run your life. If my wife walked in and said, you're going to do what I say from now on, I'd say, tee up the divorce in 10 seconds. But this jerk wants to tell you with his dick on the table. I'm sorry to be gross, that's what it is. That he's gonna, you wanna see the clips again? There's a bunch of them. Bill Gates, all of them. Hey, Bill Gates, you ain't my daddy, okay? When I moved out at 18, my daddy wasn't my boss no more. You sure as hell ain't my father or my mother. You ain't giving me any orders. You got that? Get orders from the Holy Spirit, period now. And I take this as an affront. Your neighbor swaggered over to you when you're washing your car in the parking lot in your driveway and said, you know, Bob or Bill or whatever your name is, I'm going to run your life now because I know best. You'd say, are you crazy? Are you on some pills, man? Are you all right? Should I call a doctor? No, I know best. And you're a racist if you'll do what I say. You're like, dude, you need medication. But when it's a guy that controls 80+% of all the money in the world, we just go, he's a big old rich jerk. We better do whatever Larry Fink says. We'll talk about that next hour, because that's the kingpin. Then you got the ADL and Netanyahu's their minion. But that's what this is, ladies and gentlemen, and it's disgusting. And Netanyahu with a straight face. Well, we're going to use all the Jews in Israel now as guinea pigs, so we'll be the site for all the medical testing now, and we'll find out if it hurts people or helps people, but we're going to test on the Jewish people. What? No, Larry Fink, I don't care if you're German or Jewish or African. You don't own our body. You don't run our lives. We're not going to eat your bugs. Burn in hell. And these guys don't want to be exposed, but they are being exposed. So they get their central bank digital currency in. Katie, bar the door. Let's go ahead and go to clip 31. Tom Emmer introduces bill to ban Federal Reserve from creating a central bank digital currency. That puts the globalists into checkmate. Here it is.
It's good to be back in the People's House, where House Republicans are ready to continue delivering on our promises to the American people. One important aspect of our common sense agenda is actually protecting Americans' financial privacy, particularly when it pertains to this lawless administrative state. That's why I reintroduced a bill yesterday called the Central Bank Digital Currency Anti-Surveillance State Act, which puts a check on unelected bureaucrats and ensures that the United States digital currency policy upholds our values of privacy, individual sovereignty and free market competitiveness. Recent actions from the Biden administration have made it clear that they are not only itching to create a digital dollar, but they're willing to trade Americans' right to financial privacy for a surveillance-style CBDC. This bill ensures the future of crypto is in the hands of the American people, not the administrative state, by prohibiting the Federal Reserve from creating a tool with unfettered insight into Americans' financial data. If not open, permissionless, and private, like cash, a CBDC is nothing more than a CCP-style surveillance tool that can be weaponized to oppress the American way of life. We're not going to let that happen, not on House Republicans' watch. And I want to thank the Financial Services Committee for considering our bill this month, and we're going to continue working to ensure that the digital economy is designed by Americans and emulates American value.
And if I tried to say all the good things that are happening, it would take 10 hours. But a whole bunch of states have pulled the pension funds out of BlackRock. That's why it's running off of this tail between its legs. So the globalists aren't all powerful, and if we just identify the real world we live in, we can beat it. So let's talk about who really runs the world and what their plan is and how to stop them next hour. We're going to take the ADL to the woodshed. Please stay with us.
Don't go along with the new lockdown. Don't take the new shots. Prison for Fauci. Prison for Bill Gates. Prison for the New World Order. Prison for the globalists. Yeah. I love you too, brother. Yeah. COVID-19 was a globalist corporate attack on humanity. Go put your mask on then, folks. And as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Governor Greg Abbott, we are here to put you on notice that you do not have the right over our body. You do not have a right this time to put us under Fauci and Bill Gates' lockdown. That we will not put up with new lockdowns. We will not put up with new masking. We will not put up with your regulations. I didn't say good part there. I got that. You're right there. I got that. The point is that we are simply here to put them on notice because they're trying to do lockdowns. We're not trying to cause you problems. And citizens are told you can't walk on the grass, but you can cross the border with kidnapped kids all day long. No, no, no. You don't protest us in America. You're a bad person.
So the border's wide open, fentanyl's all been shipped in, and they've got us pulled over harassing us for our papers. Whatever illegal aliens, they just let us fly, do whatever we want. Citizens are harassed, citizens are held to a higher standard. We're out trying to say no to new lockdowns. This is what's happened. So Greg Abbott, we're coming back now.
We love you. We love you.
I've been shadow banned. I've been called a liar. I've been silenced on virtually every platform created by man. My life has been threatened repeatedly. They've tried to destroy me, but I've survived. And that's why I'm joining Mug Club.
The replatforming begins now. Join Mug Club and get 1 month free with promo code ALEX at jonescrowder.com.
And we normally post it at about 11 a.m. Fridays, the new show. We're doing a bunch of other shows soon, but there's so much footage and so much going on. It'll be posted later this afternoon at jonescrowder.com. And I want to thank everybody that has signed up for it. Man, that's a whole nother story about what happened when we drove around downtown and talked to people. We got about 99% positive feedback until we got to the Texas Capitol. And the state police are all waving at us, "Hi, Alex." And then they pull over both cars, try to start searching everything, and treat us like we're terrorists. And I'm like, well, okay, how about I kidnap some kids? I'm like, well, that'd be a lot better. It's so pathetic, ladies and gentlemen. And and so now I'm going back there a bunch. The governor is going to, I may go bullhorning for 10 hours. I mean, I've done it before. So I'm going to go camp out there and bullhorn his ass because we know he sicked them on us. We've been there a while driving around. All of a sudden, they were ordered to come after us. They did. And again, if I had some kidnapped kids, it'd be fine. If I was an illegal alien, it'd be fine. But the issue is, we were right. Now, cue up Hochul if you can real quick from yesterday. They lied about the shots working. They lied and blocked the therapeutics. They did all the lockdowns. They're bad. And the Governor Abbott, worse than DeSantis, worse than Trump, got down on his knees to him. So we just went down there to the Capitol and then there to say, hey, don't do it again. And I've been down there 100 times over the years. And I've never had the state police swarm us like this. Well, if you think doing that is not making us come back, you just guaranteed, I promise you, Greg Abbott, I'm going to be down there at 10 o'clock at night bullhorning you, okay? Greg Abbott is just a piece of work, ladies and gentlemen. He's a Bushite. He's a fake Republican. And all the state police do at the border is write tickets to citizens and harass people. And I'm just saying, I don't hate the state police themselves, but they write tickets. When he occupied Austin because they fired part of the police and won't enforce the law, they don't go after crackheads. They don't do investigations. They just write tickets to soccer moms all day long. It's a joke. It's like writing tickets for speeding at the Indy 500. Or it's like reorganizing deck chairs on the Titanic. And it's a joke. I mean, the state police in Texas are just so sad. I mean, they're like robots. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, G20 announces plan to impose digital currencies and worldwide IDs, which they will social engineer you with. I'm going to get to that coming up, but all of this is interconnected. And so let me now talk about the ADO. And I want to explain something to people that have not studied the philosopher Hegel, who is the main philosopher the globalists use, even though they don't actually follow it completely. They're blind when it's going to hurt them or affect them. They still operate one or two dimensionally, but then they use Hegelian dialectics against us. So it's Hegelian dialectics are actually very complex and very sophisticated and fifth, sixth dimensional. But the easiest way to describe this is blowback. World War I, the Germans started firing nerve gas at the Allies, but a lot of times the wind would change. They'd have good weather reports and blowback on them. So they figured out, hey, let's stop using this. By the end of the war, it didn't work. So the easiest way to describe Hegelian dialectic, it's a whole system. It's very accurate. It's a philosophy of the mathematics of ripples in the pond. You throw a stone into a pond and it creates ripples. As you throw more stones in, more ripples happen and they start bouncing together. Here's the best analogy of it. I like boating. Haven't been able to do it in like a year, but I got a ski boat. We like to go out on Lake Travis with my family. And if you get out there in the morning on like July 4th, when there's 10,000 boats out there, literally, I mean, it's insane. It's a 37-mile long lake, but still, it's long and skinny. It's a dammed up river. You get out there till about noon, it's smooth and okay. You get out there at 5 o'clock, you're risking your life. Because so many thousands of boats are going back and forth, even though the lake at its widest part is about 2 miles wide. There are like 6, 7, 8 foot, 10 foot waves out there. Because they're bouncing off the rocks, the cliffs, and then there's no algorithm to understand it. There's not a satellite studying, at least I don't know if there is. And all these things bounce together, and pretty soon you're out there and there's just waves everywhere, 4 or 5 foot waves, and then all of a sudden you look over and here comes some 7 foot wave off a bunch of other waves all day bouncing together, and it just swamps your boat. I've never been sunk, but I've seen dozens of boats where people are sitting around drinking beer or whatever, and there's like 2 foot waves, and then all of a sudden you go, what's that? And some 6 foot wave comes and hits the back of a boat, and it floods and sinks. A few times, we've got video of it. Rob Dew was there when it happened, so was Quentin Carter, and we literally had to go save people in a family because this wave swamped them, hit us, almost sunk us. They had a smaller ski boat. Ours is a big one, and it literally sunk their boat. That's Hegelian dialectic. How does all this interact? How does this bounce around? What does this do? So my job is not to be an apologist of Elon Musk. My job is not to be an apologist for Jews. My job is not to be an apologist for Chinese people or Orthodox Christians or Catholics or evangelicals. My job is to actually look at the history of groups and then who they work with and what their goal is versus what their goal's actually creating. So before I do this, and not because I won't be attacked, I'm already fully under attack by the ADL, fully under attack by the globalist combine, fully under attack by the big banks and Larry Fink and BlackRock. But I'm going to explain something. If I come on the air and say, like Kanye West did here last December, almost a year ago, 10 months ago, if you respond to Jews being used as the front group for the New World Order, if you respond the way he does, saying Jews are bad, period, you add to the dialectic that they're trying to create of a conflict. Just like when they fund Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is 99% run by white people. They got 4 or 5 black women as their front group. Their main mission is to castrate black males in the black family. Is that good for black people? No, they want to hurt them. They want to control them. So just like Black Lives Matter is funded by George Soros, when Black Lives Matter is out burning down cities and saying white people are the devil, I don't see some black delivery driver with FedEx or a black doctor or a black school teacher like, well, Black Lives Matter burned down Milwaukee, so you're black, I don't like you. But that's the dialectic, and the incredible black anti-white racism the system's created, it's a minority of blacks, but they've been brainwashed, is creating real white animus and white racism that had been basically dealt with. It was gone. No, it's back. And as they create this conflict, Joe Biden says, oh, the #1 threat is white people. They're about to get violent. They're going to false flag, folks. They already have. So there's thousands of points that go into this dialectic, but our supercomputer brains God gave us, if you study it, can see how it's working. So before I get into this and indict the ADL and tell you who runs it and who controls it and what their plan is, it is critical to understand that the majority of voters, upwards of 70% in Israel, did not accept the lockdowns, do not accept the tyranny, do not want Benjamin Netanyahu under globalist orders to establish a dictatorship in Israel. So let me explain that. You go, well, wait a minute. How if 70-something% of Jews, and I'm not their apologist, I'm giving you facts here. I throw this rock in the water, it does that. I throw this walk in, it does that. I throw these in, I'm looking at what it's forming here, okay? And the globalists are masters at manipulating that. And if things don't go the way they want, then they'll fund a right-wing movement or a left-wing movement or a pedo movement. And it's all about manipulating that pattern. Skip a break. And it's realizing that gives you next-level understanding. That's how you know tomorrow's news today. We don't blame the Germans today for Hitler. And we don't blame the majority of them. Their country was taken over. And the same way Israel is run today is the same way Germany was run. So this is one small piece. That's why it's so frustrating, because I can give you all, I have it all. A lot of you do as well, but I mean, I have it all. Studying history. Hitler was elected without a majority of the vote. You go, well, that's not true. Well, you're an American. You're in one of the only two-party systems in the world. What you think's bad, it's the best system there is of a bunch of bad, worse choices. In a parliamentary system, the biggest minority gets elected. Justin Trudeau got 30% of the vote. He's still in charge. He says, I want to be a dictator. And really, if you're doing dictatorial things, you get elected by 30%, you are a dictator because the majority do not support you. But that's parliamentary systems that came out of the Renaissance, came out of the Great Enlightenment in England, and it was the first try at the apple. It's not that good a system. Israel is a parliament. Germany is a parliament. The UK is a parliament. All three of their governments, Irish, English, Scottish, well, Welsh, that's just 4. Netherlands, France. They have a kind of a bifurcated between the two, but the US designed it for them. The point is that you want to say Jews are evil and they're the devil, they have horns at night and little tails and they're running around eating everybody. But 70+% of Jews do not support being guinea pigs, do not support the Ukraine war, look at the polls, and do not support Benjamin Netanyahu. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying Benjamin Netanyahu is the devil. He's just a puppet. I want people to get a 35,000-foot view here, because only then, before I take the ADL the woodshed, which I'm about to do, and tell you who runs the show and who ate the cabbage, it is first critical to understand that there are multiple dialectic programs of manipulation where you think a group wants this, but really they're bouncing it off that, because they believe with their calculation, the 2 colliding forces or 3 colliding forces or 10 colliding forces is going to create this. But only if you're unconscious can a 2 or 3-sided dialectic win. If you're aware of the overall game, you then have operational control to ignore the dialectic and realize that the synthesis is a fraud and reject it. Now listen to me. I'm giving you enemy philosophy right now. And whether it's the Russians, the Chinese, Israel, Al-Qaeda, the mullahs in Iran, they're using Hegelian dialectics. So let's be big boys here. Let's actually talk about what's going on instead of, oh, well, what group's good, what group's bad? No, let's talk about the agenda. So out of the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, and BlackRock, and all these groups, and Big Tech, and the CIA, and the FBI, and all these groups that are in a combine with dashboards created by the Carnegie Foundation and the CIA, look it up, to en masse have all these different agencies and private NGOs and corporate groups and law firms swarming with big dinosaur media to coordinate disinfo, attacks, all of it that's come out in Congress. I told you about it decades ago. What has come out of it? What has the media made it? Not the white supremacists beavering away to expose the Jews, believing they're winning and showing everything. No. The media itself is just like the white supremacists. They are pointing out it's the Jews. And it's the so-called Jews that represent the Jews, who are claim they represent the Jews, that are making it all about, hey, we just want to make the internet safe. We're not powerful. We're just censoring and surveilling you, but we're Jews. And the ADL is bad and is at the center of it. But what's above the center? The center of what level? So that's the thing. You don't support the ADL, you resist it, but you understand the manipulation and the dialectic and how this has been set up for the fight. So now if you don't want to be surveilled and censored because you want to take ivermectin or vitamin C, and the head of the ADL is saying you're a white supremacist, or you don't want to open borders, human trafficking, and the head of the ADL says you're a white supremacist, and the media says, well, the ADL says you're bad. You go, well, I don't hate Jews, but what are you doing this to me? Why are you? And then it makes it about that. And then what happens at one level? This is one little dialectic part of it, not even 5%. It's 100% total. What happens to the ADL when they become the tip of the spear of tyranny? Well, Jews will start getting attacked, people will take the bait, people will believe it, the globalists will stage false flags, and what will happen to the Anti-Defamation League? They will get massive funding and donations from the very Jews they're setting up and scapegoating for operation. Last time I heard, Joseph Mengele was bad for forcing medical experiments on people. The angel of death, the top Nazi scientist. The Nuremberg Code is written for him. But when Netanyahu gets up on Jordan Peterson 6 months ago and goes, well, we're using Jews as the test subjects and we'll be the center of biotech and research because we're going to use Jews as guinea pigs. Imagine if I got up and said, we're going to use Jews as guinea pigs. You'd be like, whoa, you're Joseph Mengele. But oh, if you're Benjamin, you know, it's like, well, he's Jewish, so it's okay, see? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay the head of BlackRock that has 80% of all the money in the world says he's going to control our lives and own our bodies. It's like, well, I mean, he's Jewish, so it's like, I understand. And then it'll create extreme anger and frustration out of that dialectic, create that conflict. And then all the hardworking Jews around the world, as they get persecuted and attacked, will then donate to the ADL. Now, that's only one lower floor of this. It goes up a few thousand floors. It gives me a headache to even fully face it. And verbal systems and things are really hard to fully express something this complex and big. But I mean, I think you think this is complex and sophisticated? This is nothing. But what they can't have is what I just did, exposing the larger social engineering dialectic of playing us off against each other. And saying, well, wait a minute. The polls show 65 to 80% of Jews, so let's just round it off 75%, do not want all of this. Well, it doesn't matter. Benjamin Netanyahu and the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, and Larry Fink, they speak for you. And if you're allowed to let Donald Trump back on Twitter, Greenblatt says you're a white supremacist, and Netanyahu's in an airplane flying over to California right now in the Bay Area to meet with the big tech titans and Elon Musk to give him an ultimatum. Because, you know, maybe if Musk doesn't recognize, hey, Greenblatt represents, you know, powerful group, maybe if the leader of Israel shows up. But see, Netanyahu's not showing up with a bunch of authority. The majority of Jews in Israel oppose him. But see, if you just look at him like you look at Trudeau, you don't look at Trudeau and go, man, that guy's a tyrant, wants to be a dictator and had lockdowns and is a thug and is disgusting. You don't go, why are you against French people? No one even thinks that. I'm against Xi Jinping. I'm not against Chinese people, see? But the ADL is there with this horrible agenda of making us all guinea pigs and censored and controlled, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jew, agnostic, doesn't matter, see? So Netanyahu got a minority of the vote. He didn't get the majority. It's parliamentary, the Knesset. Justin Trudeau didn't get elected with a majority. The British Prime Minister didn't get elected with a majority. Almost none of them did. Not the German leader, Schmidt, or whatever the hell his new name is, after Merkel. Imagine if I said, I'm against Merkel and all her tyranny. Well, why are you against Germans? I'm a Heinz 57, folks, but I've done my genetics, looked at the family tree. I'm about 51% German. I'm not against Germans, but, you know, I'm against Hitler. And I'm against Klaus Schwab. He's German. So let's just cut through all that and stop making it about Jews or Germans or Chinese and say, I'm against Klaus Schwab. I'm against Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm against Xi Jinping. I'm against Biden. Oh, Biden's Irish. Well, Alex Jones attacked Biden today, and the Irish community, you're like, Irish? I'm part Irish. What does that have to do with anything? It has nothing to do with anything. It's a distraction, folks. Because if you look at what Benjamin Netanyahu's doing, it's exactly what our presidents are doing, and exactly what the British prime ministers are doing, and what the German chancellors are doing. It's what hundreds, because they're following orders of the globalists, who are now putting Jews out as their fronts, and then saying, if you oppose our agenda, you're anti-Semitic. Now that's the second floor. It keeps going up from here. We're going to play clips, get to more of this here in a moment. But that's where we are, folks. And it's disgusting. And if you want to know about the character of the type of people that serve this, look no further than George Soros. Hired at 14, works for 4 years for the Nazis in occupied Eastern Europe, rounding up Jews. I never rounded up a Jew. I never did anything to a Jew. In fact, I'm really offended that I almost don't exist, and both my grandfathers, I've said 100 times, almost died in World War II, both of them. One of them crash landed, long story, whole 9 yards, Purple Hearts, you name it. The Army Air Corps. I almost don't exist because of Hitler. And then you want to turn around and tell me I'm a Nazi? Fuck you. And the horse you rode in on. I'm pissed at you. You are disgusting. And the way you're setting up your fellow Jews to take the fall is exactly what you did with Hitler. And if anybody knows about this, they're doing a part two. So I'm really worried about Jews, actually. I think you're going to see persecution. I think you're going to see false flags. I think you're going to see a lot of crap. Because the globalists have this obsession. They play the same playbook over and over again. And the good news is a lot of Jews see through this and are standing against it. Does anybody believe, like Elon Musk said, that Donald Trump is anti-Semitic? That is preposterous. Does anyone believe he actually hates black people? That is horseman. And the people that are saying that are the ones stirring up division and are disgusting. Truly disgusting. So what's the rest of the story? And where does all this go? Because we can be all emotional and get played into this and get destroyed, or we can rise above it and realize what it is and understand the larger plan. But in the final equation, we have major mega banks that do have a bunch of ancient Jewish families in them and other groups as well. It's like a mixture with old European, Eastern European royalty. You track the German lines, the British lines, all that. It's like old European elite, some Italians that ran to Western Europe and mixed in with them some of their royalty, and then powerful Jewish families that married in with them. But the Rothschilds are like a hybrid. So they can hide behind Jews all day long, but they're a particularly bloodthirsty group that, on record, funded Napoleon and the British Empire, and the Battle of Waterloo, and did a bank run and a stock market crash, and it's in the history books. And they continually squeeze the Jews, just like Soros did at a microcosm level, to give them the money and the power, and then use them for their larger operation. We're going to come back and give you the secrets they don't want you to know about the ADL and what they're doing with Elon Musk, and more straight ahead. Infowars.com, tomorrow's news today. All right, open phones in the third into the fourth hour. I've set the table here for about 20 minutes last segment. And now I'm going to give you the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, the big enchilada. So before I get into Greenblatt, the ADL, and Musk, and BlackRock, and the whole story, let's just sit back all day and just kind of look at this. Just sit back, have a drink of coffee, and say, what is the public agenda of the corporate media and what they tell us? Well, the West is evil and racist and white people are bad. So a race-based system. And we've got to prove we're bad and accept a global new currency and a central bank digital currency and be tracked and pay carbon taxes. And there's too many people, and we've got to depopulate. So Hitler conservatively killed about 40 million people one way or another. Non-Germans. Another 20 million Germans got killed plus, 24 million. So I guess Hitler inadvertently, you can say totally, 60-something million. Well, the communist Chinese have killed, they admit 100 million of their own people. Look at the communists everywhere else, is up to about 200 million. Well, who runs that? Who's funding that? So when we sit back and see Bill Gates getting awards decades ago at eugenics depopulation summits, we played the clip probably 100 times. Well, who's Bill Gates? Does he work for the Jews? Because the way the media works is, the Elon Musk says the Jews run everything and the Jews are bad. Elon Musk didn't say that. The media said that. The controlled corporate press said that. Who else said that? All the different white supremacist organizations and groups, most of them feds or foundation funded. So all I'm saying is the ADL's out doing what it's doing. It's terrible. And they attack me all the time and want me in jail and arrested, and they're obviously financing attempts to destroy me. But wait a minute. So who's Bill Gates? Is he Jewish? He wants to depopulate the planet. He wants to go after poor people no matter what color they are. He wants to force things on your body. I mean, who is he really? So when you pull back and look at this, you have this surveillance and censorship and depopulation and open border and a program that killed, the UN admits, the last 3.5 years with lockdowns that just ended less than a year ago in the third world, 80+ million people. Well, by starving them to death. Not COVID, but the lockdowns. And I know Africa or Latin America or areas of Asia is like another planet, but it's actually a little planet. That happened just a 10-hour plane ride or a 5-hour plane ride away, depending on where you're going. So that's not the real agenda. The real agenda is to play God, to have AI, total control. They're attacking everybody's family. Doesn't matter what color you are or where you're from. The same globalist agenda is coming down on you. Whether you live in Israel or Morocco or England or the US or Australia or Germany or the Netherlands or France or Sweden or Denmark or Norway, it's all the same agenda, the same propaganda, the same programs, the same poison shots, the same New World Order. So we're all fighting with each other over what racial group runs it because we're all real tribal. It's how we're designed. From our previous epigenetical experiences. There is a corporate overlay and a corporate depopulation agenda that is taking place. And everything they do, cutting off the resources to, quote, save the earth, doesn't save the earth. It makes you poor so you can be more easily controlled, poisoned, dumbed down, isolated, sucked dry, and killed. So instead of addressing it as Jewish or Catholic or Christian or Masonic, it's better to address it as good versus evil, what's pro-human, what's anti-human. And again, this is not an apology to Elon Musk on one end of the dialectic and the ADL on the other. It's understanding the compendium of the larger operation. Who died and made Bill Gates God and your doctor over your body? Who made Larry Fink on TV saying, in fact, cue it up, you can find it, a bunch of clips. We're gonna use pressure, we're gonna use control, we're gonna use our control of 80+% of all the banks and all the currency and all the companies to make people do what we want. Now, Larry Fink's Jewish. And when you criticize Larry Fink or George Soros, you get attacked as an anti-Semite. Again, I criticize Xi Jinping. He's Chinese. I don't think Chinese people are inherently bad. So it's a fraud. And everyone's in danger. And I gotta say, every organization, every group needs to go ahead and come out and realize we're all being conned here. We're all being led to slaughter by ultra-rich that stole the planet through fraud. They think there's too many of us. Whether there is or not, the point is they're not self-appointed to decide we're destroyed. And so many people who are liberal, white, you name it, will say, whether you live in the US or Europe or Australia or New Zealand, it's the same attitude. Well, there are too many people and we gotta, do this. But okay, so you're being targeted too. So stop pretending as they line up people to kill them economically, culturally, physically, spiritually, that you are exempt. Yeah, BlackRock CEO slammed for forced behaviors comment, and his there's a bunch of these clips, and his social credit score and all the rest of it. So you have groups claiming they represent Jews going along with a literal agenda that would make Hitler salivate and become green with envy because it's so much more sophisticated and powerful than what he was planning. Though he did plan the EU with the rest of it. And that's all I'm saying. This is not a Nazi conspiracy. The Nazis were just one group following the eugenics conspiracy who were a competing faction in the eugenics transhumanist death cult revolution. And if you don't think there aren't powerful Jewish combines, just like there's Chinese mafia and all the rest of it, and globalist mafia, that are in the New World Order contending for full control, well, then you're a fool. But that doesn't indict Jews in general, just as the Italian mafia does not indict Italians. And I'm not here as an apologist. Listen to me. This is a dialectic. If you take the bait and you say Jews are the problem, because they're going to run headlines today. Jones says there's a international whatever and attacks Jews. It's the opposite. That's what they do. They lie. We know that. This is about who's actually tuned in. This is about what we're actually discussing. This is about really saving the planet and humanity. This is not about their games. We're going to say the truth. They're going to cut it up. It doesn't matter. Because those that are called by God to hear the truth will tune in and hear it. So I love German people. I love Asian people. I love Jewish people. I love Muslim people. I love them for their religion. I love them for their genetics. I don't hate them as a person. Doesn't mean I accept their religion. And I really want a future for all of us together. And I really care about people. And so remember, the globalists are cutting off your energy. The globalists are coming after your resources. The globalists are trying to brainwash your babies. The globalists are trying to castrate your children. The globalists are bringing in corporate fascism at the top, socialism and communism at the bottom. They're the ones launching wars with Russia. They're the ones endangering the planet. They're the ones surveilling you. They're the ones censoring you. And if they can hide behind, oh, it's a Jewish program trying to stop racism, we all know it's not. It's an electronic straitjacket of control. And if we just recognize what it is, and it's a larger globalist corporate agenda of technocrats, transhumanists, we can come together on policy and get past what group we're in, and together we can beat this. But it's going to take an understanding of that. Our problem isn't Germans, it's not Jews, it's evil people. So I'm going to come back into these clips and cover so much more, and then we'll take your phone calls next hour. But this is a big, big deal, and it's all coming to a head. False flag terror attacks. All right, now I'm going to get down to brass tacks. Alex Jones here, back live. Open phones next hour. I'll give the toll-free number out in a moment. Discuss any item we brought up. Just be a first-time caller. I want to give those people a chance here today. So, what did Jesus Christ say? Christ said, you judge a tree by its fruits. So I don't look at somebody who's Chinese or who's Arab or who is a Sephardic Jew or anybody else, Ashkenazi, doesn't matter, and say, is that person a Jew? Is that person a Muslim? Is that person a Christian? I look at what they deliver. I don't listen to Jimi Hendrix because he was black. His guitar is incredible. I don't listen to Metallica because they're white. Their music's amazing. I don't listen to Beethoven because he was German. My humanity resonates with him. I don't read Sun Tzu's The Art of War because he was Chinese. It makes a lot of sense, a lot of knowledge there. So I really have an open hand to people. And I legitimately do not hate black people because a large minority of blacks have been turned into racists and hate me because I'm white. I realize they've been mind controlled. I don't hate the KKK, though they've been brainwashed and they're idiots. I realize they've been mind controlled. But it doesn't mean I won't defend myself against them. So Christ said you judge a tree by its fruits. Well, the ADL has joined Bill Gates and King Charles and Klaus Schwab and the New World Order in what the Nazis tried to do, that they basically stole the plan, and they said this in Nuremberg, from British intelligence for this global government and eugenics-based system, which you see all around you. So you hear everywhere, people are bad, we need to depopulate, but take a shot, we want you to live. And all the heart attacks, the 20 million dead from the shots and the rest of it, I mean, and then in the middle of that is Greenblatt running around making it all about Jews, and then Elon Musk doesn't want to censor everybody, and it's like, Jews, Jews, Jews. It's a distraction, folks. It's a diversion. And anybody can look at, it's got half a brain and see that that's happening. So, the ADL and the Rothschild leadership, I don't blame all the Rothschilds, it's a big family, and Prince Charles, who's King Charles, and Bill Gates, who claims he's an Episcopalian, they're not Anglo-Saxons, they're not Jews, they're not Chinese. Xi Jinping's not Chinese in his action. He's a parasite, he's a tyrant. Hitler wasn't a German, he was an evil person. Lenin wasn't a Russian, he was an evil person. Stalin wasn't, Stalin was all with a bunch of Jews setting up the Soviet Union, and then he double-crossed them and purged the Jews. You see, this is a revolution of satanic evil. And you've got the Jewish mafia, and you've got the banking cartels, and you've got the Chinese mafia that's the communist, and you've got all these different factions. Like, we know there's Italian mafia. We know there was Irish mafia. We know there's CIA cliques and FBI cliques. But then you go, oh, I don't support this Jewish mafia running my life, taking my world over. And you're like, oh, you're anti-Semitic. But that's what it is. But it's not a Jewish mafia. It's a transhumanist, globalist mafia. And at the depopulation summits they have, they're not sitting there reading out of the Torah. They're saying we're God. And the depopulation group at the top with King Charles and Klaus Schwab, the globalist, is the pedigree of the Nazis. So I've studied this. At the very top of this thing, it is the most European royalty operation you can imagine. That's the top of the pyramid, is what Hitler grew out of. Hitler doesn't run it. It's not Nazi. Hitler came out of that. So at the top is a European royalty, and then it's encircled by its Praetorian Guard of different organizations and groups, and BlackRock and the ADL, and then it just goes down. And they create racial division and Black Lives Matter and men against women and the feminist movement run by the CIA and Gloria Steinem. Look it up. And it's just people turning us against each other. So you can be Christian, you can be Jewish, Muslim. They've got most of the major groups, leaders behind this. And it doesn't matter if you're Jewish or if you're European, who you are, whether you're African. The globalist program wants to make you eat bugs. Again, imagine you come to your wife and said, honey, we're going to eat bugs from now on. She'd leave you. She should. But Larry Fink, in fact, get that clip ready. I know you already had it ready. Larry Fink says we're going to control your behavior through the control of corporations. And the behavior they want is horrible and destructive. The fact that he's a Jew is a distraction. You need to kill his ideas, not be suckered in. And again, I'm not an apologist for Jews. Use your head. Just because there'd been some bad Jewish organizations in history, there's been bad groups in every group. Doesn't mean Hitler's good. But then there's this one-dimensional thing with Kanye West sitting right there in December of last year saying, well, I love Hitler because I don't like Jews. So whatever, it'd be like if you have the Crips and the Bloods running around shooting and killing each other and slinging crack and kidnapping people. And you go, well, I'm against the Bloods, so you must be a Crip. I'm against MS-13, so you must be for the Mexican Mafia. I'm against the KKK, so you must be for the Aryan Nations. No, I reject the KKK. I reject the Aryan Nations. I reject the Mexican Mafia. I reject MS-13. I reject the false globalist New World Order Sanhedrin. I reject the depopulationist Nazis. Because at the end of the day, it's all the same Antichrist spirit that wants to play God, it wants to make people slaves, it wants to control free will, it wants to take control of our children. Because it doesn't matter if you're Jewish or Christian, or your genetics are black, or your genetics are Hispanic or Asian. They want to cut your son's balls off. They want to depopulate us. And if that isn't Nazi, I don't know what is. So I look at what comes out the tailpipe. I look at a tree and what fruit it has on it, like Christ said. The ADL is Antichrist. The Nazi Party is Antichrist. King Charles is Antichrist. The CIA is Antichrist. Radical expansionist Islam is Antichrist. Communist China and Xi Jinping is Antichrist. So I don't look at them as what genetic group they are. I look at the spirit activated within them, and that's how we finally resonate, whether we're Jewish or Christian or Muslim or German or French or Chinese or African. When we finally resonate with God and justice and truth and look at the byproduct and the fruits, then we transcend. But as long as we look at the genetics of the person, the enemy wins, because it's a spirit that can take over anybody. Germans, they admitted in the 1930s, were the smartest, hardest working, the most patents, incredible people. They got you Hitler, didn't they? The Germans are not to blame for Hitler. We are all to blame for Hitler, including the Germans. So what's that mean? We're collectively to blame. So I'm going to tell you now, you can call it prophesy, whatever you want. We need everybody to face the truth, and we need the Jews particularly to come out against George Soros and to come out against Larry Fink and to come out against Greenblatt and just say, you don't represent me. Because they say they represent you. They've stolen your identity. And they're planning on destroying it. You've seen the pattern. You're not stupid. I'm here really trying to create justice. I really love God. And I really love all of you. And if you don't listen to me, that's your fault. Because I came here to tell you the truth. I said I'd take calls. And we will, but I got to do a few more segments. I want to go to the clips and go through the stack here, but I've only covered the surface of this. It sounds complex. This is just the surface. The toll-free number to join us is 877-789-2539, 877-789-2539, 877-789-ALEX. I loved it when ADL, ban the ADL, trended everywhere. I don't want to ban the ADL. That's what they want, ban all of us. But I loved it when it trended because people were like, well, is Alex Jones talking about the ADL? People were like, what the hell are you? He's like their main target. And why is that? Because I know their game. I know who they are. They are the spiritual baton takers or the children of George Soros and the Nazi collaborators. They are Satan. But they are not the Satan. Satan's spirit takes on many forms. We'll be right back with hour number 3. All right, this is like an 8.5-minute report. If you're a live TV viewer or radio listener, we're only going to air like 5 minutes of it right now, but the full thing will be posted at band.video because Greg Reese had a report that went viral with these Chinese lasers. This is all confirmed now. Right over Maui and Lahaina when the fire started. And then they actually go, and I went and checked it myself. It's true, because it's all tracked by NORAD. This was happening, and the Chinese, they admit months before, scanned the topography before they hit. Remember, BlackRock and the globalists control China and their major investments in their military. They can do that. So I want to air this report now. Then I'll come back and take calls. And then I know we have a 4th hour guest host. Who's doing the 4th hour? Jay Dyer? All right, I'll take a little bit of Jay Dyer's time because I got to get to all the rest of this as well. But here's part of Greg Reach's report going into the Chinese high-powered satellite.
Steve Favis is an expert in computer science and advanced robotics. He has been researching the Maui fires and has compiled evidence that the technology exists to have started these fires from a satellite in Earth orbit. He has also confirmed that the CCP had satellites capable of doing so above Maui at the time of the fires. His work has been published on his website, stevefavis.com, and includes everything you need to recreate these findings. The most efficient way to ignite a fire on the surface from a satellite in Earth orbit would be to paint the target in segments by pulsing the laser with an advanced targeting system. To see if this were possible, Favis calculated what it would require to create a meter-wide, mile-long fire. Fired from a satellite, the Earth's atmosphere will absorb and scatter some of the laser energy. And so the laser would need to be in a wavelength range that minimizes this. The most effective wavelength would be in the near-infrared range, which would allow better transmission through the atmosphere. The near-infrared range would be invisible to the naked eye and would also have a minimal reaction with objects colored blue on the Earth's surface. The power of the laser would need to be in the hundreds of kilowatts range, and so Favis based his calculations on a 10 megawatt laser firing from Earth orbit. Assuming that the atmospheric loss amounts to 50% of the overall power and only 5 megawatts reaches the surface as a 1 square meter beam, it would ignite a fire almost instantly. If this 5 megawatt beam was pulsed across a 1 meter by 1 mile long area in segments, then the time to ignite the entire area would be roughly 2.7 minutes. And it would only take approximately 8.8 seconds to melt an aluminum alloy wheel. The amount of energy required to pulse a 10 megawatt laser for 2.7 minutes would require approximately 3,220 capacitors, which would amount to about 32,200 kilograms in weight. Using MetLab software and plugging in public data provided from NORAD, he found that satellites launched and monitored by the CCP were directly above the Maui fires at the time of ignition. The CCP's most powerful rocket, the March 5, can launch up to 48,500 kilograms of payload, which is more than enough to carry the required payload in Favas's calculations. But Favas has found that the CCP has much more powerful lasers deployed already. He has calculated that the CCP has up to 70 gigawatt lasers in Earth orbit right now. That's at least 100 times more powerful than what he factored into these calculations. Adjusting NORAD's default Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC, to the local time zones, Favas found the following. The Olinda fire was ignited at approximately 10:47 p.m. on August 7th. At this exact time, CCP satellite labeled NORAD 53299 was directly over the location. The Lahaina fire was ignited at approximately 6:37 a.m. on August 8th. At this exact time, CCP satellite labeled NORAD 55836.
We'll be back. All right, we got loaded phone lines. I'm going to go to your phone calls here in just a moment. I want to finish up with this whole Elon Musk ADL situation. So Jonathan Greenblatt, who is just the front man for this globalist intelligence agency, he came out and said, we don't have any power. This is ridiculous. We're just a little civil rights group that got rid of 60% of Twitter's advertisers. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu is in a plane, he may have already landed, to land in the Silicon Valley area. Netanyahu flying to Silicon Valley to meet with Elon Musk and discuss anti-Semitism on X. Anti-Semitism, they say, bringing Trump back as anti-Semitism. No, that's election meddling. That's a so-called Jewish organization hiding behind persecution of Jews in World War II as if we did it. Disgusting. Truly, truly evil. And then you look at the rest of the news here. Breaking, Biden planning new national address about cracking down on threat of democracy to be delivered at the McCain Institute, saying white supremacists are everywhere. DHS awards $20 million to program that flags Americans as potential extremists for their online speech. So they can human traffic. The border's wide open, but the big problem is white people. BlackRock, an MSCI under investigation by House Committee for Investments in China. As soon as this got flagged 2 months ago, almost all the money was pulled out by the Communist Chinese and the hundreds of billions of dollars. That's Larry Fink for you. BlackRock China funds named in U.S. lawmaker probe. White House chief of staff, wealth and connections collide with Biden's clean energy strategy, where he makes billions of dollars to the Democratic Party off all their fake green agenda. And it just goes on and on and on. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, in a new video, just said the Biden administration spent $1 trillion on climate anxiety, fear, mind control. And Israel has their judicial reforms that 70+% of Jews call tyranny and martial law. They don't agree with it. But then, we're supposed to say, well, don't oppose anything in Israel, like making them take shots while you're anti-Semitic. Got to do what their government says. joke, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fraud. It's a lie. The agenda in Israel is the exact same agenda in Singapore, the exact same agenda in London, the exact same agenda in New York, in Los Angeles, and Dallas, Texas. And it's taking over your body and controlling you. It's the same agenda in Brazil, the same agenda in Mexico, the same agenda. It's world government, mad scientists taking control of your bodies, planning new lockdowns, planning all the control. So let's play these clips. Let's play Greenblatt first on national TV, NBC or CNBC, saying he doesn't know why people claim he has power, why Jeepers Creepers, Jiminy Crickets, he doesn't know what's happening. Then we'll play the Deputy Secretary General of the UN admitting their censorship's failing and calling for major crackdowns.
I mean, Elon tweeted something I didn't know, that the advertising revenue's down 60%. But look, brands are big boys and girls. They will make their own decisions. I mean, let's be clear here. Like, this is the wealthiest man in the world running one of the most powerful media platforms.
By the way, hit pause there and start it over. The real wealth is hidden. So Elon Musk, 140 billion is chicken feed compared to BlackRock that has quadrillions. So let's just get that straight. Oh, here's the biggest man in the world. He's intimidating us because he let Jordan Peterson back on the internet. Oh, I don't have power. I'm just Jonathan Greenblatt. I just spy on you and train your police and censor you. And if you don't like open borders, you don't like fentanyl, you don't like World War III, you're anti-Semitic, which again creates anti-Semitism, which gets him more funds. See how it works? Continue.
I mean, Elon tweeted something I didn't know, that the advertising revenue's down 60%. But look, brands are big boys and girls. They will make their own decisions. I mean, let's be clear here. Like, this is the wealthiest man in the world running one of the most powerful media platforms on the planet. We're a nonprofit here in New York. So I think figuring out like who has the power in this relationship, it's pretty clear to me.
Jonathan, and of course, firings at Twitter.
Hit pause. Let's go to the Deputy Secretary General in a moment for the UN. So we don't have any power. We just have BlackRock behind us and the UN, and we're just surveilling you and watching you. Oh, Elon Musk has the power. Let's continue.
And of course, firings at Twitter have left us with no one to call to flag content that is
to control
abusive
people
or even incitement to violence.
Oh, yeah.
We're now seeing that almost anyone can promote disinformation for the price of a blue tick.
Which you
So we've
declare.
Still, it's not all bad. We have teamed up with the platforms to elevate reliable information around COVID and climate, to amplify trusted messengers, and we have quite an army of them out there who want to take UN content and promote it within their followings, and also educating users on how to slow the spread of disinformation. Our new slogan that we want to have everybody have in their ear when they're online is pause, take care before you share. But yet we do feel like we are in an information war.
Oh, you are,
and
sweetheart.
that we need to massively ramp up our response.
Oh, you have.
So
don't
we're
worry.
creating at the UN a central capacity to monitor and also have the ability to rapidly
Hit pause. Back
react.
that up to 20 seconds. We wake up. They don't come with blue helmets, folks. They come with censorship and AI. So they're like, we're losing the info war. Yeah, you're a fraud. You just killed 80+ million people with lockdowns. And she's all, oh, what do we do? They're not listening. We want to take their food and cut their pipelines off and devalue their currencies, and they don't like it. We're the chosen globalists. We're supposed to rape everybody. No, the chosen people are supposed to empower us, dumbass. Why don't you just join humanity? No, you're with Bill Gates and King Charles, that degenerate pedophile. Burn in hell. So she's gulping like a fish out of water. Because you're losing. And you will lose. But you and Larry Fink got your big old heart on for us, and you keep raping us. And you're mad like, we're raping them and they're getting upset. Well, just censor them more. Give them more poison shots. Give them more 5G. They'll bow down once we rape them good. Yeah, just slap them around a little bit. That'll teach them. But does it work, does it? You gross person. I don't know who this lady belongs to or what group she's from. I don't even do that. What comes out of her mouth is diarrhea. Poison diarrhea. Continue.
Want to take UN content and promote it within their followings, and also educating users on how to slow the spread of disinformation. Our new slogan that we want to have everybody have in their ear when they're online is pause, take care before you share. But yet we do feel like we are in an information war, and that we need to massively ramp up our response. So we're creating at the UN a central capacity to monitor and also have the ability to rapidly react when mis and disinformation and hate speech is threatening not just our people, our operations, but also the issues and the causes that we're working on. But also we're going to be gearing up our verified initiative around climate change and developing this UN code of conduct on information integrity on digital platforms, hoping to set global standards that we can all advocate around so that we can collectively work for a more humane internet.
Like when you starve 87 million people to death? Wow. You think that spells confidence? That's somebody on the rocks. We're not locked in there with them. They're locked in here with us. Oh, she's a woman, so it's okay she wants to censor you or shut down countries and kill people. It's like, well, she's a woman, let her do it. I mean, it's liberal. It's trendy, you know. They were supposed to be our rulers. They were supposed to be our gods. And then they get so surprised that we don't just roll over in the gutter and die. Imagine the exhilaration that somebody like Greenblatt would feel if he joined us. A future for his children. A future for the world. A pro-human destiny. They can't do it, folks, because they signed the contract with Satan. Let me play Greenblatt. I guess we already played Greenblatt. I guess it's time to take calls. But that's where we are. So, we don't have a choice, do we? I mean, can I get on my knees to the ADL? Do I get on my knees to the CIA? What do I do? Because these people all are social climbers. They do whatever they're told. I had all those offers, and it just didn't feel right because I'm kin with the people. I'm kin. Whether you're Jewish or Chinese or German or Russian or Asian or Hispanic or you're human. I just can't screw you over. I just don't feel good doing it. I feel good being a leader. I feel good being strong. I feel good standing with you. Because I respect my ancestors. I feel them. I know them. And they tell me to fight you. And so I have to follow that. I have to go with that. I have to do that. I don't have any other destiny but that. I can't betray humanity. I won't do it. Because humanity is our people. And I bet on you. We're going to go to your phone calls right now. Please remember that without your support, we're not here. It's a very easy decision to get incredible, game-changing, life-changing products. At the same time, Vitamin Mineral Fusion's almost sold out or is sold out. DNA Force Plus is back in stock. Real Red Pill Plus is finally back in stock. Body's Ultimate Turmeric is finally back in stock. We've got my powerful book, The Great Reset, The War for the World, signed or unsigned. They're all there. But if you won't stand up for yourselves, I can lead a horse to water, I can't make a drink. We need your support. Plus, these are products that will blow you away. Real Red Pill Plus, back in stock. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. All the incredible amino acids, folic acid with it to get the upload you need, and the pregnenolone, Real Red Pill Plus. I need your support. I know the enemy's successful shutting us down, which they're close to doing. You're going to flood in with all this support. But the infrastructure built over decades won't be there. We'll rebuild, but I tend to dance with those that brung me. And this operation we got here. But I'll never give up. I'll never give in. I've told you I can give out. But if that's the wheelhouse they put me in, that's fine. We continue on. But it's that serious. Go to InfoWarsStore.com now and experience Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula. Experience Real Red Pill Plus. Experience DNA Force Plus. All discounted. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. Thank you for your support. These really are things you should get. You should make the decision now to go to InfoWarsStore.com. All right, we got Steve, we got Donald, we got Andrew, we got Jonathan, we got Jason, we got Kevin, we got Chase, we got Maddie, we got Melissa. We got everybody. And we have this global banking cartel. Whoever runs it, we can debate that all day. Cutting off the resources, starting World War III, starting race wars, creating incredible division, and trying to play us off against each other for control. And we should reject that. Steve in Texas, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex, I wanted to talk to you about the Khazarian Jews. And I'm an older guy, probably about your dad's age. And it was very hard for me to understand that Israel, the nation state that's there now, is not the Israel of the biblical times that we read about in the Bible. It's a separate thing. The Khazarian Jews, from the 1600s, as I understand it, the Khazarians infiltrated the Jewish population, and they're the ones behind this thing called Zionism, which is different than the thing called Judaism, which is the ethnic Jews who worship Yahweh. And Zionism is a completely different animal. It's everything that you've talked about is centered in this Zionist movement, which is not Jewish and not Christian. So the Christian population in our country, most of us, older ones, believe that if we go against the nation state of Israel, then we're going against God and we'll be cursed, just like it says in the Bible. When I found out that the Khazarians actually have infiltrated the Jewish population and are masquerading as Jews, then that opened up a whole different spectrum of understanding for me. And that's when I became a fan of the InfoWar, because, like the lady says, we are in an InfoWar. And the American people who support Israel because they're Christians, because they believe that Israel there is the same Israel as in the Bible, that is a core problem. And if the people understand it, they won't support it anymore, and then the whole thing will break. So that's it, buddy.
All right, thank you so much for the call. Let's go to Donald in California. You're on the air.
Hello, Mr. Jones. How are you?
I'm all right.
I bought your Nitric Boost, your fish oil, and the Never Surrender tea.
Thank you.
I just want to say, you're welcome. God bless you and everybody at InfoWars, and may God prosper you in everything you do, and I hope you succeed in everything. I wanted to say that one of my family members works at Disneyland, and I was asking them about the drag queen thing, and they said that somebody had been arrested already for messing with one of the kids already. So we got that going on.
Oh, yeah,
over
it's
there.
a pedophile cult, brother.
Oh, yeah. And then as for Oren Schroyer, I just want to say that he's fighting a good fight, and, you know, you fight for your freedom or you be conquered by your oppressors. And, you know, he's fighting a good fight, and I just want to say thank you for everything that you do, and you've always been right, sir.
Well, not always, but most of the time. I wish I wasn't. Thank you so much, Donald. Andrew in Texas, you're on the air.
Hey, greetings, Alex. To all the info warriors out there that are continuing to fight this fight through prayer and or finances. Looking back at everything, I think, and I kind of switched up a little bit just because I got off topic listening to the other great listeners and their info. But I think it's something more sinister for Bibi, because at one time I liked Bibi, but I think he's totally working for the devil, and that's Netanyahu. But I think everybody's trying to get on Musk's good side because the technology, and even if all that evil technology in the satellites is supposed to be, you know what I mean? What's the word I'm looking for when you govern something? I think everyone's going to that man to take it from him and or correct him. But that's what I got. All I can say to you, Alex, is tell everybody out there to limit the content that puts fear. Seek the Spirit of God. Seek the Holy Ghost. Come back. Eat a little bit, but don't let it consume you. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Jonathan in South Carolina, go ahead.
Hey, Alex. First, I want to say I've been listening for about 20 years, and I've been buying all your products since you started putting out X2.
Well, you're the reason we're on air, brother.
I appreciate that, man, and I appreciate keeping you on air because it's you've saved my life, saved my mom's life in a lot of different ways, a lot of my friends too. So I appreciate you very much, sir. Now, my question is, and it's a bit rhetorical at first until I kind of get through some stuff, but is Jew a religion or a race? See, and people get in trouble when they say, "Oh, well, it's just a religion," and then the reality is, if you read in the Jewish almanacs themselves, they claim themselves, strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew, or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew, and that goes back to what your first caller was talking about, and really, yeah, we can say that they're the Khazarian Jews, but these are the Edomites. And they trace their lineage back to that. So to them, it's racial. And to people that aren't in that club, like George Carlin talks about, to them it's more of a religion. And then within that differentiation, you've got the Jews that accept Christ, and then the Jews that don't. And then you can get into what the Bible says about that. And, you know, in John 1.
Sure. What about Bill Gates and the eugenics and Hitler and the New World Order? That doesn't exist?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Hitler was half Jewish. Bill Gates has been on record, I mean, dealing with the Jews. He's their front man. He's the guy that they can go, yeah, Alex, look at you. I mean, and you will, and you'll point out Bill Gates. And he's a great poster boy because he's a white dude. And that they are the most anti-white people. And I'm not claiming all Jews are that. I'm claiming these Jews that have usurped the name Jew, put it on themselves like a beard, and then parade around literally in charge of us. Janet Yellen, Merrick Garland, Alejandro Mayorkas, Avril Haines, Ron Klain, David Cohen, Eric Lander, Victoria Nuland, Wendy Sherman, Anthony Blinken, all Jews. I mean, they are doing this to us. So then what you said earlier when you said, where's the good Jews saying, hey, I'm not that? I'm so glad I heard you say that today, dude, because that is what's needed. We need to say the Jews are doing this to us. And then we need to explain a little further that it's not really all Jews, of course, that are chasing Jews around. But nonetheless, we have to call out the people who are claiming to be Jew and are, in fact, doing this to us.
But the law, what about Xi Jinping? Is he Jewish?
No, but the Jews sure do deal with China like it's nobody's business. I mean, it's all business. This is all business. They don't care about anything else. They're all about their shekels and their dollars, and then switching the currency over and owning it. We're already chattel owned on our birth certificate as collateral to a bankrupt country that was bought out by foreign banking industries, which we know is the Rothschilds.
Do you understand the dialectic, though, of making this all about that? It gives power to the ADO.
I don't think so, man. I think we got to, if we can't say what it is, how do we fix it? If we can't say...
Hey, we got open phones. It's free speech. We're taking phone calls. I appreciate your call, Jonathan. Chase, Maddie, Melissa, Jason, Robert, Chad, Ryan, your calls are just a few minutes away. Stay with us. I know something we can all agree on, and it's that the central bank digital currency to surveil us and control what we can buy and do and make us eat the bugs is a fraud and a lie. The poison COVID shots don't work. They make us sick. They kill us. So whoever runs it, we oppose it. And all I'm saying is they're trying to make it about Jews. Elon Musk never made it about Jews. The ADL's doing that, and it's so transparent. So I'm not an apologist for Musk or the Jews or anybody else. I'm saying we sit back and see the control. Chase in Illinois, you're on the air. Thanks for calling on this Friday edition.
It's a teetotal delight to get in, Mr. Youngs. Anyway, first let me say that
I'm going to be honest with you. You got to back off your phone. So I missed what you just said. What was that?
I said it was a teetotal delight to speak to you. Can you hear me now?
Man, I still miss what you said. I'll give you one more try.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Well, hold on. Can you hear me, Chase?
Yes, I can. Okay, let me blast through this then. I want to thank you for the InfoWars enema. It caused hallucinations better than DMT. Besides that, Alex, sometimes we have visions and they come true. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I had a vision of you. It was a heavy notion of you assisting in massive baptisms in churches and real life events. So I don't know what God's doing. I don't know if he's segueing you out of the radio and if that's even a true thing. But I would encourage you to put that on your radar. And really quickly, I got 3 points. One, Jesus said, "Beware of wolves in sheep's clothing." He called Antichrist Judaism Satan's synagogue. They were promoting eugenics 1,500 years before Hitler was even born. The Talmud promotes blasphemy, pedophilia, murder, and theft. And so what we're seeing is that we're conforming legislation. World legislation is being conformed to the Talmud. That's a fact. Number two, I don't think Europeans are on top because Napoleon said the hand that gives is above the hand that takes. He said international bankers have no national allegiance. They can fund both sides of wars. No matter who loses, they win profits. Historically, Jews were above the European kings because they were the bankers giving them loans. And third point, end times. The end times revolves around China and Russia attacking Israel, and God himself says, "Behold, I set thee in the midst and make you a cup of reeling." He draws Russia and China down. It's God. And God says they have to be attacked, and he will purge out these Antichrist rebels and have a refined remnant. But I believe why it's going to be Russia and China, and I'll be done right here. Why Russia and China? I believe they're going to realize that the guiding intelligentsia behind the Bolshevik propaganda that led them to kill millions of their best entrepreneurs in China and Russia were the Jews. 2% of Russia was Jewish. They were like 80% of the secret police. But again, it's God himself that is bringing down war. So let's not defy God. Now they've got it coming. And finally, if anybody qualified as the mouthpiece of Antichrist, you all know Harari. Let's just say that right now. This man is an enemy of life itself. And with that, I love you. I thank you for everything. You're a hero. And thank you for your time.
Well, I appreciate your free speech. First, you were just excited. I couldn't understand what you were saying. Maybe listeners can figure it out. But I got everything else you said after that, so thank you. Kevin in Illinois, you're on the air. Go ahead. Thanks for calling.
Hello, Alex. Pleasure to talk to you. I hope you don't mind if I switch topics to Hawaii for a minute here. But I wanted to ask if you heard the Greg Reese report from yesterday in regard to the hypothesis that a Chinese satellite with an energy weapon might be responsible.
Yeah, let's run B-roll of the end of Greg Reese's report where it shows it's confirmed by NORAD. I looked at it myself. Yeah, we played that twice yesterday, talked about it a lot, so you may not have been tuned in yesterday, but it is pretty bad, pretty damning.
Yeah, I mean, the argument sounded really compelling. I just wanted to, I don't understand what China's what would they have to gain by that?
Well, let's be clear.
It seems
China's a
more
client
likely-
state of BlackRock and the globalist. That's what I meant to get to. And I think I'm going to shoot a report today about this. We're going to post it via video. The Chi-Coms are literally run by BlackRock. So BlackRock wants that property. That's like $20 billion for them. And now we know it looks like a laser was probably involved. So again, people think, oh, the Chi-Coms did it. Yeah, they did it, but they're in bed with Larry Fink.
And would our military or intelligence not be aware of this? I mean, why would they not be screaming this from the rooftop?
Well, we
Are
already
they gonna,
saw
like,
2
hold
months
it?
before Chinese lasers, the Pentagon confirmed, scanned the topography. And by the way,
I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, this was already going on before Reagan, but they put hundreds of billions in to space-based lasers after. So when the media makes jokes about lasers, they exist. Now, I would say they would do it by aircraft because that's easier to shoot through the water vapor. Remember, there's like 10 feet of water in the first 15,000 feet of atmosphere. That's what clouds are. Even the clear sky, there's a bunch of water vapor. But they've got mathematicians that have done the equations that a powerful enough laser would still start fires easily.
And so, would you say that it's because of this BlackRock involvement that our own media and government are just pretty silent on the whole?
Yeah,
subject?
BlackRock owned the power lines and denied the water and let the power on. I thought it was the power lines; they were part of it. But now we have a Chi-Com giant laser satellite that the Pentagon says is a secret, probably laser payload, a gigantic satellite, 6 times more powerful than they need to start fires, directly over Lahaina, Maui, when the fire started. That is confirmed.
Jeez, and so everyone's just ruining these people's lives for a few bucks.
Well, think about it. I mean, we're in Star Wars for real. You don't blow up enemy troops. That's obvious. You just start fires in California, start fires in other key places you're given by BlackRock to hit. BlackRock wants post-industrial world. They said we're going to behaviorally control you. And BlackRock, it's in the news today, owns the Chinese military. In fact, I'll show you here in a minute. Here. It's in the news today. Overhead shot, please. BlackRock and MSCI under investigation from a House committee for investments in China. Turns out they fund half the Chinese military, including their satellites. BlackRock China funds named U.S. lawmakers probe. And it goes on from there. So, yeah, they're the main funder of the Chinese satellites.
Unreal.
Can't make
Well,
that
Alex,
up, can
thank you so much.
Thank you. Go ahead. Anything else? Didn't hang up on you. Jason in Ohio, you're on the air.
Hello. Do you hear me, Alex Jones?
Hey, man, when we go to your calls, brother, you're on the air. Hold on.
I'm sorry, man.
Whoa. You're on air. Go ahead.
All right, I appreciate you, Alex. And your products, too, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
I take Bodies, X2, all of it, man. Really made a difference. I was really like no energy.
Well, the products really work. Plus, they keep us on air. So only idiots wouldn't do it. I need support. People want to fight the globalists. We're their number one enemy. People should tell. Let's talk about that. I'm sorry I was rude. I'm just really frustrated and pissed off.
You're all right.
Skip the break, guys. Skip the break. Start over with the products and get to your topic.
All right. If you're listening to Alex Jones and you're getting your information from him and you're not taking products and helping you out, then you're losing, man, because these products are the best. I'm telling you.
What did the products do for you? Tell us about it.
Well, like the Bodies. My back I needed a hernia. I had a hernia. I needed a surgery. Ended up not needing it because I did physical therapy with Bodies and glucosamine and a couple other things. I was able to get my back pain down to where I didn't need the surgery. So that's one thing. The Bodies even helped my stomach, like I was having digestive problems as well. Helped me out. Yeah, I know that it probably doesn't even really do that or isn't supposed to, but it did. So lucky me, But the X2, I think more clearer. I have 2-year supplies of it. It lasts forever. Buy it. It's worth it. Take it. Oh, man, it's a fish oil I take. It takes away my pain, I have no arthritis. It just goes on for on. And I did the green capsules, worked better than anything else I ever took. Yeah, so I recommend people taking it. If you're listening to Alex and you're getting your information from him and you're not taking it, you're losing out. Especially if you don't get your funding and then one day you're not here and people are getting their information from you.
Well, we're just blessed to be here, brother. I appreciate you. What's on your mind? COVID, Project Veritas going to Maui?
Yeah, my thing was, what was the last thing that James O'Keefe did with Project Veritas that no one's talking about?
He exposed Pfizer, saying we're creating new viruses.
Yes, and that they're creating vaccinations for those viruses. Isn't it a little fishy? That's exactly what's happening right now. No one's bringing that up. I mean, it's right there, man. It's like the proof is right there, people. They're Pfizer's creating new viruses so they can make new vaccinations. A month or two after this new virus comes out, they have a vaccination. Put two and two together, people. Come on.
You're right. That was crazy. That's something we should revisit on the show and play those clips. How obvious is that?
Those clips. And he's on the ground crying. Give me back my iPod. What are you doing to me? Crying because he knows what he's,
And people didn't believe this guy's the global head of their mRNA program. That's their patsy. Incredible. Thank you so much, brother. Wow. Maddie in Missouri, you're on the air. Welcome. Thanks for calling. Elon Musk and American history. What's your view on all this?
Well, I just wanted to add a little more to what you already said. I'm sure you already know that America, unfortunately, has a long and well-documented history of throwing American entrepreneurs under the bus after they've asked them to help with wars. If you go all the way back to World War I with Pierre DuPont, they came to him and asked him to convert all of his soap factories into ammunition factories. I can't remember what the exact number is, but they say it was really high. Like he made 80% of the ammunition for World War I.
Yes.
Well, towards the end of the war, they haggled over the price, and the government labeled him the merchant of death. They actually ran newspaper articles. They destroyed his family name.
That's right.
Then
They asked him to convert to that, and then when he didn't do what they wanted, they called, that's true, the merchant of death. I remember that.
Yeah. So that's all I was going to say. Elon shouldn't be surprised if, they throw him under the bus, because that's kind of what they do.
Well, how big is it that he's transferred control of Starlink to the Pentagon? When they asked him not to let them attack last year, then he gets the blame. He says, screw you, it's yours. Wow, that shows big offensive is coming.
Oh, absolutely. I just heard that today on your show, and honestly, I haven't even processed it yet. That's just mind-blowing.
Anything else, Maddie? Great points.
Hey, it's been an honor talking to you.
Honor talking to you, brother. That's why we're here. The crew and the listeners. Only reason I'm still here. They have drained me down to nothing. They got all these fake news articles. We read them. None of it's even true. And I know you know they lie, folks, but they lie just big. It's total crap. Robert in Florida, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Alex, Greg Reese is a huge asset to your company. I'm glad that you have him on. I would like to see you come out with electronic, some kind of account where if you want to buy product and you can't afford to come up $300-400 out of your pocket, maybe you could take the chance of getting some people to make payments and receiving the product and doing like an electronic fund transfer to their account.
The average product's like $25, so I don't even $300, but...
Yeah, I try to buy $400 or $500 sometimes. Sometimes I can't put milk on the table for the kids, but...
Well, don't do that. Just, whatever you got to do. That's why all the that's why all the people out there on the fence need to support us.
Exactly. I want to just read a little bit from a poem written in 1970 from the great Ozzy Osbourne called War Pigs. Generals gather in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerers of death's construction. In the fields, the bodies burn as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hate of mankind, poisoning their brainwashed mind. Oh, Lord, yeah. Play that maybe. I don't know what copyright is, but pretty much sums up what's happening in the world today. And
no, I hear you. And I am a fan of that original heavy metal. It was actually the bassist wrote that.
Yeah. Great song. If it's satanic...
Generals gather in their masses, just like witches and black masses. Sorcerers of death construction, We're gonna end this hour with that song, brother.
Attaboy. God bless you, Alex. And I saw the article your wife posted about you not paying, your fair share of stuff. But I know it's all bullshit. But people got to remember, we were told we all have the mind of a goldfish, but I don't think it's true.
Well, no,
People
they just want you to think we have plenty of money. And I actually talked to my accountants today. Thanks for the call. I didn't respond to that because I don't care. AP, Reuters, thousands of articles, thousands. It's everywhere. They didn't file a court filing. They filed a public notice at the court saying Jones spent $90-something thousand in July. Well, it's true. I paid my property taxes and my legal bills, and then 4 months of maid services, like $1,000 a month or something, I hadn't paid. They put it all in one thing, cherry-picked it to say, look, Jones has all this money. He doesn't need money. They just say that to make you think that, and like, oh, he has boats. I haven't used those boats in a year, a couple motorboats. One's like 20 years old. We're getting rid of them. I don't even care. But my wife, I didn't even know she did that last night. I went to bed at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. She stayed up late. This morning I saw her respond on Twitter. She's like, this is lies, because she knows it's lies. And they're like, oh, your house had $6,000 in repairs. It had broken pipes from the ice storm. It's literally the level I'm at. Oh, I'm bad. I'm not smuggling children. I'm not, but oh, $6,000 in house repairs. It's a joke, people. It's an absolute fraud. But that they don't want you to support us, so they put it in hundreds of publications. And again, one AP goes in, when I say thousands, I mean AP is in every local news, every newspaper basically publishes it. When I say thousands, it's probably, just AP is 10,000. Jones is bathing in money. Jones is just full of cash. He's just so powerful. But Larry Fink's good with his quadrillions. All right, Ryan in Idaho, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Man, I'm so happy to be here. I just want to first say that I've been listening and supporting for years. I love you guys. I love what you're doing. You guys are just doing God's work. And a previous caller had brought up Vivek Ramaswamy, and this has been something that's been kind of, bouncing around in my mind. Is so if we all agree that the problem with America and why we're falling is because we've lost sight of God in our culture. If that's a problem, well, then the solution is, well, bringing them back in and doing what you're doing. And so, as Christians, is it appropriate for us to elect someone who is not a Christian into,
Well, I mean, I don't think Vivek Ramaswamy is actually going to win. I'm just saying the things he's saying is good, so I just judge it off that. Doesn't mean I trust him to run things, but it shows how popular freedom is that everybody from Joe Rogan to Tucker Carlson saying this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I understand. I've heard him too, and I just think that that's a concept that I think that us as Christians need to really consider. Like, well, what are we supporting here, and is that actually part of the original problem? And I just wanted to bring it up. I haven't heard anybody talking about it, and I figured I would bring it to you guys.
No, I agree. I mean, as Christians, we try not to demand people follow our worldview, but they demand we follow their worldview. And Christians should become more politically, culturally, religiously aggressive and more territorial.
And you said it yourself, it starts in the church, but it also, you have to understand the church is not in four walls. It's in our relationships. It's in our conversations. It's in what you're doing.
Ryan, thank you. I'm trying. Chad in Florida, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, brother.
Hey.
I was just sitting down here in Florida, and I heard you touch base down on the ADL stuff and how there was little to no race relation issues prior to a certain era. And I was thinking about that. If we think back to 2014, whenever Lewis Head, who was that gentleman? Michael Brown's stepfather was on top of that car in Ferguson, Missouri, and he was saying, burn this, down. And then Barack Obama doesn't come out to say anything against that.
Well, Barack Obama was running all that. It came out.
Oh, yeah. And then we fast forward to 2014, whenever Dylan Roof, who was the lone gunman that went to that Charleston church and shot those innocent black people, which was a very unfortunate thing. And I And it's nothing that any of us want to condone or anything like that. I'm absolutely against it 100%. But if you watch the interview, the FBI interview after that with Dylann Roof, he's basically quoting to the FBI agents that are interviewing him FBI statistics and his reasoning why he carried out that shooting. And you think about the common theme with the Charleston, the Buffalo, New York shooting, and here recently we got Jacksonville. These gentlemen are between 19 and 21 years of age, a very age where things are very influential to you, and you kind of pick up on it. You can't really more rage than anything comes through. And I think that all the listeners out there, black, white, brown, anybody needs to understand that there's some menacing people out there, and they're
there's a giant anti-white ADL run attack that white people are inherently evil. There's massive anti-white crime. It's the #1 crime out there, statistically, racially based. Meanwhile, Joe Biden says white people are out murdering everybody, trying to stir whites up to do it. It's a total race war, Black Rock operation.
And exactly, and to my fellow brothers and sisters out there that happen to be black and conservative, don't be afraid to go out to the community and let people know about Huey P. Newton, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. Once they realized that they were pawns in the game, unfortunately their lives ended, and that's just the way it's been going. It's been going that way for years, and there's no sense for this division. We can all come together.
Absolutely. Beautiful point, Chad. Jane in Michigan, you're on the air. Go ahead, Jane.
Hi. So the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15, gives Congress the power to call forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Now, the current definition of the militia, as I understand it, and I could be wrong, is the National Guard, the Navy militia, and it
that's their false definition. It's the Second Amendment's definition.
Okay, perfect. So I think that Congress, it's time that they invoke this. They need to.
Well, you said it. They're collapsing society to bring in their communist militia. The answer is the constitutional militia.
The communist militia is here. They've been coming through our border. The Chinese communist militia has been coming through our border for the last 2.5 years. Communist Party for the last 10, 20 years has been building their own army, and I believe that these people are coming in to join them.
Oh, there's no doubt they're building a physical army, but they have our medical system. They have law enforcement. They already have us. We have to recognize that.
They do, and that's the problem. Congress doesn't recognize that. If they were to recognize this and start just call forth the National Guard and have them start, first of all, they need to take out all these judges and all these Soros installed.
Well, the problem is it's a grand jury indicts people. We can't have law enforcement take out the judges. That's what the left actually wants. But I hear what you're saying, but it's not like the average cop's hired because they follow orders. People keep thinking the military or the police are going to save us. That's the lowest rung, folks. And nothing against them, but that's just, they send the state police to the Texas border. They write tickets to citizens taking their children to school for 5 miles over the speed limit. They follow orders. They're not going to save us. Our non-compliance is what's going to save us. Dennis in Kentucky and others, I'm going to go to break, come back and take a few more of your calls, and then I'm going to hand the baton to the great Jay Dyer, who goes right to the globalist documents. Is so critical. Please remember, we have great products that are incredible, that you need, that will empower your life. DNA Force Plus, back in stock. Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula, back in stock. Real Red Pill Plus, just came back in a few days ago, back in stock. All discounted together. We're going to go to break and come back with more of your phone calls straight ahead. Thank you all for your support. Stay with us. Jay Dyer is set to take over just in about 6-7 minutes. And I wish I could get to all your calls. I'm going to try right now to get as many as I can. But I really have good faith and goodwill towards everybody. And I hope we can fix this. But at the end of the day, God's in charge. And all the deceivers will pay in the end. The vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Dennis in Kentucky, you're on the air. Thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. First off, I wanted to say worldwide, we're looking at Margaret Sanger on steroids. Domestically, we're looking at Operation Chaos and Operation COINTELPRO on steroids. And I would really love if you can get Greg Reese do a report about PASLA, Pacific Asian Securities Lending Association and their members is far greater than what I expected to see once I got on their website, sir. Thank you.
Well, elaborate on that group.
Well, this is a securities borrowing and lending in a very competitive business. I'm reading right from their website. While individual firms involved in the business may have their own unique marketing and business development strategy in Asia, the member firms believe that PASLA, as a collective group of major firms in the industry, provides an important benefit to Asian securities regulators, stock exchange, and monetary authorities by providing an industry consensus on the issues that affect the development of all the securities lending business.
Which means they're a unified group.
This is a unified group, and they got some of the biggest members known that I have ever seen in my life. I mean, everybody
Well,
is
that's
in this.
BlackRock. BlackRock's 88% of the whole economy worldwide. That was in congressional reports today that they are running the CCP and giving them full weapons.
I can understand that, and this has got everybody from Goldman Sachs to J.P. Morgan Chase, all the way to BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and it's plenty of Chinese investment firms in this. There's a ton of Korean investment firms in this. I mean, Indonesia, Fidelity, Deutsche Bank, Citigroup, Citadel Enterprises, Asia Unlimited. I mean, these people are just BMO Capital. The people it's 59 members this is unreal.
Powerful. People are waking up. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dennis. All right, up next is Michael in California. You're on the air, Michael.
Doing, Alex?
Welcome.
All right. Well, you pretty much said it all with BlackRock. My reason for calling typically happens that way, but I pulled up a couple videos on that big shoot there, and I'm kind of concerned about falls in line with that ADL stuff. There are multiple videos of Orthodox rabbis out of Israel. Yeah, that subject again, I know. But they're calling for the destruction of the West, which they say is the biblical Edom. And they're also calling for the destruction of what they're calling Amalek. Amalek in the Hebrew means doubters or like infidel non-believers. So my concern there is like the World Zionist Congress, since the late 1800s, they've been convening, and the protocols of Zion, all that junk. And all of this stuff that they've mentioned in all of these minutes at these meetings and diets, these things are being carried out right now. And a lot of us on this end are concerned that these people are doing it, and that's why we're all like the Jews. So, I mean, they say they hate Christ. They want to attack Christians and destroy Christianity. They want to take the land and rob us. What do we do? I mean, I don't want to hate on everybody, but it's kind of hard when you have specific groups that are now taking over everything, targeting a bunch of us normal people who aren't doing anything wrong.
Well, there's no doubt the ADL is painting all opposition to the global government as anti-Semitic, which is not my perspective and not my goal. But, I mean, it's open for debate because Elon Musk is obviously not anti-Semitic, neither is Trump. And the ADL says, well, you're not supporting all this. We're going to come after you. I'm going to ask Jay Dyer. He's already loaded for bear. He always does an incredible job. I always eat my lunch on Friday and listen to him. We're going to come back in 1 minute, though, and I'm going to ask Jay Dyer his view on this and the dialectic, and then he'll take over. To Melissa and Jennifer and Tammy and Mike, I'm sorry. And Brad, I tried to get to everybody. I'm out of time, but I'll be back. More shows coming up. I'll talk to Jay Dyer straight ahead. Stay with us. One of my favorite researchers is Jay Dyer. What a great talk show host, and I'm always blessed to have him Fridays do the fourth hour. And you have the ADL branding everything. If you don't support censorship and global government, the Ukraine war, you're anti-Semitic, Elon Musk is anti-Semitic, Donald Trump's anti-Semitic. It's preposterous. But what's the larger, from a guy that has written a bunch of best-selling books and has a massive library and it really mainly quotes the globalist, who's really in charge of the New World Order, Jay? And what's going on with Judaism? Because we know Israel's 70% are against Netanyahu, but still he's in charge, or 70% are against Trudeau, but he's still in charge, parliamentary system. So I don't want to see Jews as one block because the majority of them don't even like what Netanyahu's doing. I'm not even attacking Netanyahu. I'm just saying the bigger picture. deep distillation. I'm going to let you talk and just turn it over to you. You can change subject whenever you want. I won't be here anymore. I'm going to be listening. But obviously, they're trying to put Jews in front of the New World Order. They're trying to make it front and center. What do you make of that from your deep research? What globalist texts say, and what really runs the New World Order?
Yeah, I think that amongst, like you said earlier in the show, the power blocks that exist, there's multiple factions vying for power, and I think most of the big geopolitical texts speak of it that way. Different factions, different groups, different mafias would like to have the upper hand. That requires working together amongst a lot of different mafias. You know, look at the way the Sicilian mafia and the other mafias all work together in the 20th century. And that's a kind of a model for the big macro picture of how I understand the geopolitics of the New World Order working. And so I think when you said earlier in the show, the real issue is not different people groups, because evil isn't restricted to any biological or genetic determinism. Evil is, in my view, a moral action. It's not something that people have in their DNA or in their group. Any specific group can act evil. Any individual person can act evil, and evil is an action. It's not a collective entity. Evil is also something, like I said, that we do morally, and it pertains to spiritual realities, in my view. So I think the head of the New World Order ultimately is Lucifer, is Satan. And then underneath that power structure, you have these competing mafias that would like to have the upper hand. And if you look at, you know, the modern nation state of Israel post Balfour and Sykes-Picot, this was really something that the British government helped to set up. And I think they did that as a way to have a beachhead, to have an Anglo-American establishment nation state as a proxy that they could set up in the Middle East to run operations. And that's why we see that eventually the nation of Israel that's reestablished then gets tired of the British having, you know, been their rulers there, and then there's bombings and so forth that moves them towards
exactly just like Hitler and Stalin turned on each other. There's constant double crossing.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's a way oversimplification to try to make everything about one of the mafias or one of the groups. There's always this coordination, and certainly there are very powerful groups in all of these areas. And you know, when I read a lot of the texts of these people, like Brzezinski or David Rockefeller, you know, they interpret and understand these kinds of distinctions amongst people groups or religions as pieces on the chessboard, as tools, right? So they're able to utilize these distinctions, and they can push these differences as techniques of divide and conquer, as techniques of dialectics, as you said earlier. How can we foster disagreements in the Middle East? Well, there's an ancient rivalry between, you know, Islam and Judaism, for example. You know, if you look at, you know, in my research, I've gone really deep into the history of Islam in the last 4 years. Prior to that, I knew a little bit about Islam, but not a lot of it. I didn't know about a lot of the textual history and a lot of what was actually in the Quran. And so I've gotten a lot deeper into that. And a lot of those texts bear a really fanatical hatred between Judaism and Islam. And so that divide there can be pushed, that can be utilized on a bigger scale, and it might be utilized in, for example, Europe. I think there's a larger plan to Islamicize Europe, and you can read about that. The global elite talked about that 100 years ago. People like Bertrand Russell, people in the Royal Society said they would use, the Fabians said they would use Islam as a way to completely change the makeup, the look of Europe. Now, they're not doing that because they believe Islam. They just saw it as a way to change the existing Christian structure that was there, that they saw as a stumbling block. So when I look at people like, you know, Tiny Mustache Man, and I read Dr. Carol Quigley, as well as Anthony Sutton and multiple other texts, and if you read Brzezinski, he actually cites Anthony Sutton. So Brzezinski himself sees Sutton as a legitimate, valid source for this stuff. And Sutton and you know, Sutton and Quigley talk about the Bank of England is who really sent money to Hitler. There's a whole section in Tragic Hope. It was I think Schroeder Bank. Alan Dulles had a role, I think, at Schroeder Bank. I think it's page 1059 or 1049 of Tragic Hope. discussing the fact that the Western elites, it's not just banking houses, it's also corporate industries that really helped to build up Hitler and his government. And they wanted Hitler to go into Poland. They wanted that war, the Western establishment as a whole. And so it wasn't just one person or one group wanting that war. It was very wealthy, very powerful elites wanting that war for multiple reasons, to make money off of ammunitions and debt for the future. When Germany lost, the future generations of the German people would then be forever into debt to the West. That's that whole World Bank, IMF model of perpetual generational debt enslavement. So that's not restricted to any single group of people. If you can go back to the Middle Ages, for example, Jews didn't have a whole lot of power in the Middle Ages. They were in the minority pretty much everywhere they were. And it wasn't Jews in the Middle Ages, for example, that were able to push usury. A lot of people identify usury in the West with Jews, and it's true that Judaism allows for usury, but that couldn't have happened in the West if the papacy had not, for example, changed its position on the promotion and allowance of usury, which happened in the Renaissance period. So there's a lot of examples of this, which I think make it more complex than it's all that group, it's all that group. I think all these groups work together at certain levels and at certain times for different ends. And I think that right now we're seeing a lot of powerful groups vying for control of the global power structure and all that. But I don't think that in the end, you know, if you were in China, for example, it's true that, you know, China has made deals with people in the Clinton administration back in the 90s. They made deals with the Israelis at different points. But I don't think that from the Chinese perspective, for example, they envision a future that is, you know, Jewish. I think they envision a future that's Chinese. Haven't they put out a document, you know, explaining their long-term 100,000-year geopolitical plan for the dominance of China? So I think you're right to bring up that different power blocks have different motivations and different end games, and there can be, you know, competing levels of power and influence in different ways. Now, certainly in the West, we see a lot of influence from, you know, AIPAC and these kinds of things, but there's also a tremendous amount of influence from Islam, Saudi Arabia, Islamic banking, for example. People don't talk about Islamic banking. Banking is thought to be, you know, just a Jewish thing, but actually there's a large, very powerful international Islamic banking structure. And that ties into the history of the funding, for example, of radical terror groups, the Muslim Brotherhood. Robert Dreyfus has a really good book on this called Devil's Game, for example. Mark Curtis has a really good book called Secret Affairs, which he's a Royal Society researcher. And I've done lectures through these books on my YouTube channel years ago. And these books really illustrate the way that the Western establishment has attempted to utilize radical Islam, not just going back to the divvying up of the Middle East through people like Lawrence of Arabia, but that same model is then adopted by the CIA post, you know, 1950s and 60s, when they discarded Pan-Arabism and then adopted the model of the British Empire of using radical Islam. So the British Empire had a strategy that they wanted to capture and control Mecca. That was one of the British imperial strategies there that had to do with competing with the Ottoman Empire at the time. So when you think about big global empires, you know, that I think helps especially in the 20th century, and which ones declined and which ones came to power. That helps us understand, I think, the nuance of not falling into the trap of thinking that everything is run by a single entity or a single group, even though you can have these entities with a lot of power and a lot of influence. So I wanted to talk today about something that ties in very well to what Alex was talking about earlier when he was discussing the dialectical manipulation. And there's a great article that was written several years ago over at Washington's blog, and it's basically just sort of taking a journey through all of the admitted examples of false flags. And when we look at all of these, what we're going to see is that this is not restricted to any single tribe or group of people. It's not restricted to Islamic governments. It's not restricted to the West. It's not restricted to Tiny Mustache Man. This is a technique tactic that's been used by governments and power structures, and conceivably even non-governmental actors, private groups, NGOs, think tanks, corporations. They might also be engaged in false flag operations. So today I want to talk about the 42 admitted examples of false flags, and we'll kind of work through these really quick, and you'll see that once we understand that this is a technique, we're going to be a lot more perceptive in decoding the supposed events that come out all the time that we're supposed to just accept at face value. And when we understand that there's a long history of false flags, we're not going insane, or we're not being tinfoil hat people when we consider the possibility of false flags. Anybody that reads and studies warfare, for example, military people, military historians, people that study psychological warfare, they would all know, everybody knows, that you can stage an event, or it can be real, it can be fake, it can be, however you want to set it up, whatever works for the specific situation. And it's done to blame the enemy, right? To give you the perception of being a victim, to give you the perception of the right to, do this or that in some international conflict or theater of war. One of the first examples that's listed, and by the way, they're all cited at the Washington Blog website in terms of everything is linked here to various government websites and commissions and official reports. Japanese troops, for example, in 1931 blew up a small train and blamed it on China in order to justify the invasion of Manchuria. This is known as the Mukden incident, or the Manchurian incident. And the Tokyo International Military Tribunal found that several participants in this plan, including Hashimoto, the high-ranking Japanese army officer, on various occasions admitted that they did take part in this plot, and that the purpose of this incident was to give an excuse for the occupation of Manchuria by the Kwantung Army. So that's one example. And if we think about this, well, does this mean that, I guess China's all the good guys and the Japanese are all the bad guys? No, this is just one example of a historical conflict, and it doesn't make either side inherently good or bad from the vantage point of this action, right? Number two, SS officials in the Nazi regime admitted at Nuremberg trials that under the orders of the Gestapo, they had faked attacks on their own people and resources and blamed it on the Poles, and that this was used as a justification by Hitler for the invasion of Poland. Now remember, in Quigley, that was all, there was a dual policy where the British establishment and the Western corporations and Bank of England and others put money into helping tiny mustache man come to power and to have the armaments and the war machine that he had. That's admitted. Quigley's not a conspiracy man. He's a establishment CFR historian and archivist. So that we're basically getting the admission that this was done for the purpose of giving a justification for the invasion of Poland. I'm talking about this false flag event. Another false flag event involving the SS was, Nazi German leader Franz Halder testified that together with Hermann Goering, they had set fire to the German parliament building in 1933, and they blamed it on a slow boy who claimed to be a communist who was the patsy. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev admitted that the Soviet Red Army shelled the Russian village of Manila in 1939 and blamed it on Finland. This gave a basis, then, a justification for launching the Winter War against Finland. This was later admitted to and discussed by Boris Yeltsin. Of course, Yeltsin himself was a Western CIA asset to help loot Russia after the fall of the wall. Number five, the Russian parliament admitted that Putin and former Soviet leader Gorbachev, that Stalin had been involved in a secret police order to execute 22,000 Polish officers in 1940, and this was blamed on the Nazis. So you see that this is a technique and a tactic that's used all the time. It doesn't make the other side that's the victim necessarily the good guys. It means they're innocent in this event, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily angel cakes or good people, right? The British government admitted that between 1946 and 1948, that it had bombed 5 ships carrying Jews attempting to flee persecution in Germany and seek refuge in Palestine. They set up a fake group called the Defenders of Arab Palestine, and then had this pseudo group claim responsibility for this event. In 1954, Israel admits that an Israeli cell operating in Egypt bombed several buildings, including the U.S. diplomatic facility. And this evidence was left behind then to implicate Arabs as the culprits. This stokes, again, Middle Eastern conflict. The CIA admitted that it hired Iranians in the 1950s to pose as communists and stage bombings in Iran in order to turn the country against the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, and this helps to bring in the Shah, who was a CIA man, all declassified, right? Operation Ajax. The Turkish Turkish Prime Minister admitted that the Turkish government carried out the 1955 bombing of a Turkish consulate in Greece, which damaged the nearby birthplace of the founder of modern Turkey, and it was blamed on Greece for the purpose of inciting and justifying anti-Greek versus Turk violence. Number 10, the British Prime Minister admitted to his defense secretary and American President Dwight Eisenhower that they approved of a plan in 1957 to carry out attacks on Syria and blamed it on the Syrian government as a way to effect a regime change. Very similar, by the way, to what we saw in the 2010s with the chemical weapons attack supposedly blamed on Assad. They used the white helmets, was a front organization that was all fake. The chemical attack was then later proven and shown to be staged by the BBC. Or the BBC was involved in that staging. Former Italian minister and judge, former head of Italian counterintelligence, admitted that NATO, with the help of the Pentagon, the CIA, this is of course Operation Gladio, headed up by Kissinger, carried out terror bombings in Italy via Gladio and other European countries in the 1950s that was blamed on left and communist groups in order to rally support for the governments in Europe in the fight against communism. Now, does that mean that I think communism and Marxism is good? Of course not. I think they're horrible atheistic systems. But I'm willing to admit that that doesn't make it good and right to engage in Gladio-style terror operations in France, Belgium, Denmark, Germany, Greece, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, UK, where Black Op hit teams engage in these kinds of operations. One participant in the Gladio operation said, "You had to attack civilians, people, women, children, innocents, in order to be an unknown people far removed from the politics. The reasoning was quite simple. This would then force the Italian public to turn to the state for greater security and against any notions of, quote, liberalism." 1960, American Senator George Smothers suggested that the U.S. launch a false flag on Guantanamo Bay, which then give an excuse to hype up tensions and go to war with Castro. 13, the State Department showed that in 1961, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and other officials discussed blowing up a consulate in the Dominican Republic to justify an invasion of the Dominican Republic. Plans were not carried out. However, they were discussed as serious proposals. Number 14, the U.S. government recently declassified documents in 1962 that show that the American Joint Chiefs of Staff signed off on a plan to blow up American airplanes and to commit terror acts on American soil, and then again blame it on Cuba and to justify an invasion of Cuba. That doesn't mean that I think Cuban communism or Castro is a good guy. I think he's a total globalist. This is just demonstrating that false flags are not foreign to the historical military record. They're actually pretty normal when it comes to how the state or how governance actually occurs. In the following ABC report, official documents show that the former Washington investigative reporter for ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings discusses that American Airlines report. That was part of number 14. Number 15, in 1963, the U.S. Defense Department wrote a paper promoting attacks on nations within the Organization of American States, such as Trinidad, Tobago, or Jamaica, that would then also be falsely blamed on Cuba. So quite a few of these at that time period related to Cuba. Number 16, the Defense Department suggested covertly planting a person or paying a person in the Cuban Castro government to attack the United States. This would then give a justification again for some sort of operation against Cuba. Number 17, the NSA admits that it lied about what really happened in the Gulf of Tonkin. In 1964, there was a manipulation of data to make it look like the North Vietnamese had fired on the U.S. ship. This created a justification for the Vietnam War, and it was actually Jim Morrison of the Doors, his dad, Admiral Morrison, that was on the ship involved in that event. Number 18, U.S. Congressional Committee admitted that as part of its COINTEL program, the FBI used many provocateurs in the 1950s throughout the 1970s that carried out violent actions and falsely blamed it on political activists. Now, you might say, well, but those were radical leftists, and so maybe the system had to do that to shut down the crazy leftists. We understand that the system nowadays does the exact same thing to all of the right-wing groups that are out there. Number 19, a top Turkish general admitted that the Turkish forces burned down a mosque in Cyprus in 1970 and then blamed it on the Cypriots. The general explained, in this special war, acts of sabotage are staged and blamed on the enemies to increase public resistance. We did this against Cyprus. We even burned down a mosque. In response to the surprised correspondent's incredulous look, the general said, I'm just giving you one example. German government admitted in 1978 that the German Secret Service detonated a bomb in the outer wall of a prison and planted the escape tools on the prisoner involved in the Baader-Meinhof Red Army faction, which the Secret Service then wished to blame the bombing on. Number 21, a Mossad agent admits, this is, I think, Viktor Ostrovsky's book, By Way of Deception. In 1984, Mossad planted a radio transmitter on Gaddafi in his compound in Tripoli, Libya, which broadcast fake terrorist transmissions recorded by Mossad in order to frame Gaddafi as a terror supporter. As a result, Reagan then bombed Libya afterwards. Number 22, South African Truth and Reconciliation Council found that in 1989, the Civil Cooperation Bureau, a covert branch of the South African Defense Force, approached an explosives expert and asked him to participate in an operation aimed at discrediting the ANC, African National Congress, thus framing the ANC. That doesn't mean, by the way, that I think the ANC is good. I think they're terrible, but the point is that this is just another example of false flag operations. So we're through about half of the list. When we come back from this break, we'll go through the other half of this list of 40 plus false flags admitted on the Alex Jones Show. I'm your guest host, Jay Dyer of Jay's Analysis. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm your guest host, Jay Dyer of Jay's Analysis, and we are working through the classic article that's over at Washington's blog that might have been forgotten. And since we're kind of in the week still, I guess you could say, of the remembrance of the Big 9 event from 2001, we're only a few days after that, I thought it would be good to rehearse this principle of false flag operations and how that ties into what Alex was talking about today with dialectical manipulation. And number 23 is where we got to. An Algerian diplomat and several officers in the Algerian army admitted that in the 1990s, the Algerian army frequently massacred Algerian civilians and blamed Islamic militants for the killing. And that's actually in the French press that it's cited there. So again, all of these are mainstream sourced. They're not sourced from conspiracy websites. And I would add too that that doesn't make Islamic militants or Islamic philosophy good. Remember that, again, this is a technique that any state or power can use as an opposition force. And even those not in power can conceivably use it. It doesn't have to be the state. It can be, small cells of guerrilla operators who do not have, state power. They could also conceivably engage in this. Number 24, an Indonesian fact-finding team investigated the violent riots from 1998, which determined that elements of the military had been involved in provoking the riots, and thus it was a staged provocateur event, not an organic riotous event. Number 25, senior Russian military and intelligence officers admitted that the KGB was involved in blowing up a Russian apartment building in the 1990s. And this was blamed on the Chechens as part of the justification of an invasion of Chechnya. Number 26, the Washington Post admitted in 2002 that Indonesian police and military killed American teachers in Papua in 2002 and blamed it on the Papuan separatist group in order to get that group listed as a terrorist organization. So this was done to just list this group and sort of out to ban them and get them shut down. Number 27, the well-respected Indonesian president admitted that the government played a role in the Bali bombings. Number 28, the BBC and New York Times and AP reported that Macedonian officials admit that the government murdered 7 innocent immigrants and pretended that these were Al-Qaeda cells to promote the war on terror in Macedonia. Number 29, senior officials in Genoa, Italy admitted that in 2001 at the G8 summit, the police, I believe, were involved in planting Molotov cocktails and the staged stabbing of a police officer to justify the violent crackdown of the G8 protesters. Number 30, the FBI admits that in 2001, the anthrax attacks carried out by one or more government scientists were actually U.S. government scientists. They were not Al-Qaeda operatives. 23 government officials also confirmed that the White House tried to link anthrax to Iraq, which was a false linking, and that was part of the justification for the Iraq war. Number 31, the U.S. blamed Iraq for playing a role in 9/11. This was shown by a memo from the Defense Secretary as one of the main justifications for the Iraq war. However, after Cheney and others had claimed this, there was no evidence or proof that Iraq had any involvement whatsoever in the 9/11 events. Number 32, former Justice Department lawyer John Yoo suggested in 2005 that the U.S. should go on the offensive against Al-Qaeda and use intelligence agencies to create fake terror cells and organizations that would have their own websites, their own recruitment centers, their own training camps, their own fundraising operations, which is kind of what ISIS and all of that is. So kind of spilling the beans there. Number 33, UPI, United Press International in 2005, admitted, quote, U.S. intelligence officers reporting that some of the insurgents in Iraq are using Beretta 92 pistols. The serial numbers, however, have been erased. The numbers do not appear to have been physically removed. The pistols are actually seem to have come off of the line in production without any serial numbers. This suggests, according to some analysts, that the weapons were intended for intelligence operations or terrorist cells with substantial government backing. Analysts then speculated that these guns were probably delivered from either Mossad or the CIA. Analysts speculate that the agent provocateurs may have been using untraceable weapons, even as U.S. authorities use insurgent attacks against civilians as evidence of illegitimacy of the resistance. Number 34, undercover Israeli soldiers admitted in 2005 to throwing stones at other Israeli soldiers to blame on Palestinians, which was used as an excuse to crack down on peaceful protests of the Palestinians. Number 35, the Quebec police admitted in 2007 that thugs carrying rocks to a peaceful protest were actually undercover Quebec police officers. 36, at the G20 protests in London in 2009, British member of parliament admitted to seeing plainclothes officers attempting to incite the crowd to violence. Number 37, Egyptian politicians admitted that the government employees looted priceless museum artifacts in 2011 to discredit protesters. Number 38, Colombian army colonel admitted that his unit murdered 57 civilians and then dressed them in uniforms and claimed there were rebels killed in combat. Number 30, by the way, Operation Mincemeat or the sinking of the Lusitania, these are other examples that are not on this list. Mincemeat, of course, is well known, and there's a whole movie about Operation Mincemeat, which came out fairly recently. That was involving Ian Fleming and others in setting up a staged dead body to mislead the German military. The highly respected writer for The Telegraph, Ambrose Evans Pritchard, this number 39, says that the head of Saudi intelligence, Prince Bandar, admitted that the Saudi government controls Chechen terror networks. Number 40, high-level American sources admitted that the Turkish government, which is a fellow NATO country, carried out chemical weapons attacks and blamed the Syrian government. High-ranking Turkish government admitted on tape plans to carry out these attacks and then blame it on Syria. Exactly. That's what I mentioned earlier. Number 41, the former Ukrainian security chiefs admitted that the sniper attacks which started the Ukrainian coup were actually carried out in order to frame others. So this relates directly to the war in the Ukraine. Back in 2014, the snipers which riled up the crowd, the Maidan coup and all that was actually engineered by the West. Britain's spy agency, British intelligence, has admitted, number 42, that it carries out digital false flags by attacks on targets by framing people by writing offensive or unlawful materials and then blaming it on them via sock puppets. In addition, two-thirds of the city of Rome burned in 64 AD under Nero, and the Emperor Nero blamed the Christians for this event, famous historical false flag. In fact, as the author of the Washington Blogs Post notes, some of the top Roman leaders, including the Roman consul Cassius, as well as historians like Suetonius, do agree that it's actually Nero that started the fire. This is based largely on the fact that the Roman Senate had just rejected Nero's application to clear 300 acres in Rome to build a giant palace, the fire then allowed him to build that palace. And so because this is such a common thing in warfare or in regional conflicts, it actually has its own tagged name. Now, it doesn't mean that everything in warfare or every event is fake or a false flag. That's certainly not true. These are just ones that are known and admitted in his list. There's actually others as well. Miles Copeland in his book, Game of Nations, the history of his operations with the CIA in Egypt, Syria and Egypt. There's a whole chapter, whole section where he talks about his usage of radicals who were terrorists. Says they're very useful to the CIA. But the point is that you have essentially, it's just so common that it's got a term, a false flag operation, right? And this list doesn't even include the 9/11 event, the Big Nine, which we just were reminded of 4 or 5 days ago. I think if you look at the history of that event, there's all kinds of indicators, clues that show very similarly that it was one of those same types of events. If you look at the way that a controlled demolition occurs, if you look at the PNAC documents ahead of time, if you look at Operation Vigilant Guardian, which was running drills of the same operations, if you look at Alex's interviews with Barry Jennings, all of those things I think speak to more and more of this phenomenon. So it's not a conspiracy theory, it's an admitted common thing in history. This is the Alex Jones Show, Doug. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. We were just covering 40 plus admitted by the establishment, various establishments, historical false flag events, and how those events are used as a tool of manipulation to garner sympathy for the state, to frame an opponent, to start a war, to get funding, to get a group named as a terrorist organization. It's a very common, well-known tactic, and I think that most people think, well, I wouldn't operate that way. And so it's certainly not possible. The government cares about me, the system, it cares about my life. They wouldn't lie about me. They wouldn't create a staged event or a real event and blame it on an enemy. That's just not very nice. The power structure operates on a pragmatic basis. They operate on a pragmatic power basis. And when we read the writings of the elite, that's exactly what we find. We find that level of Machiavellianism, that level of manipulation, that level of psychopathy. There's a phrase that comes up in psychology called the dark triad. And the dark triad traits in psychology are narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. And sometimes they're not, sometimes people have one or two of them, and maybe perhaps all three of them, but it doesn't really matter because it's a great way to describe the modus operandi of the establishment. And in today's discussion, there was a lot of concern about certain groups, but I want to give an example of somebody that many Israelis, for example, don't like. They don't like people like Zbigniew Brzezinski. And if you go and read a book like Between Two Ages, this is the book that when Henry Kissinger and David Rockefeller saw this text written by this young academic at the time in the 1970s, they said, here's a guy that we need to put in charge of some kind of group. And so in the early 70s, they put him in charge. I think 1973, they put Zbigniew Brzezinski in charge of the Trilateral Commission, which is one of these higher level steering committees, peopled by a lot of people from the Council on Foreign Relations, which already existed since the 1920s. This is another higher level type of committee. Guess what? They did the same thing with another person you might have heard of called Klaus Schwab. And so the Harvard Project, headed up by Kissinger, said, take that Schwab guy, put him in charge of something. So Klaus went from Bilderberg to the project they set up called Davos, or the World Economic Forum. So in other words, these individuals here running these kinds of situations, setting these kinds of things up, this is at the level of Kissinger and at the level of Brzezinski. Has a lot of CIA involvement, but this is, I think you could say, this is a level above normal intelligence operations. This is at the level of, the real movers and shakers in the power elite. And if we move through a little bit of Between Two Ages, this is going on almost, I think, 2.5, 3 years of hosting the Fourth Hour. I don't even recall if I've done a Fourth Hour on Brzezinski's Between Two Ages, but it works perfect, I guess, in the last few minutes of the Fourth Hour here to get into the basics of this book, and you'll see why Brzezinski was such a prodigy, I guess you could say, for the power structure, for the system to be recruited. Of course, Brzezinski's background comes from a family of Polish nobility, and thus there was a kind of long time hatred and animus and enmity between his family and the Russians, and so he was a perfect figure in the Cold War. Brzezinski was at McGill University, which happens to be one of the key MKUltra universities, by the way. And so Brzezinski wrote this book about the technocratic revolution, or what Klaus later calls in his books the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So understand that it's the same thing. They're referring to the same thing. Klaus's book was 2018. Zbigniew Brzezinski's book is 1970. And so he says that we're going to have to take account of where technology is going, because we are entering into a new revolution, kind of like the Industrial Revolution. But this is something unlike anything else in history. It's not comparable even to the earlier revolutions. That will far exceed that in its impact on human civilization. And one of the first things he talks about, which kind of blew me away, was the way that he describes the malleability of human beings and what they will mutate into. I'm not kidding. So, we think about books like The Island of Dr. Moreau, which I read not too long ago and wrote an essay on, which if you get this edition of it and read it, I highly recommend. It's one of the H.G. Wells books I read many years ago. If you get this edition, I recommend it because it has an introduction by a person from the Salk Institute. And if you know about Jonas Salk, we've covered his books like Man Unfolding and Survival of the Wisest, about the history of inoculations and genetic experimentation that he favors in terms of Malthusianism. Well, the article at the beginning, the introduction, is written by a person from the Salk Institute, and they write about how H.G. Wells was so ahead of his time when it came to human experimentation, for example. And the author of this book, who's a person from the establishment, talks about government experiments using Guatemalans in 1946 to 1948 for human experimentation. The introductory editor talks about human beings can be rewired and retooled, not just from the inside, but also via their environment, and that this could give rise to transhumanism, and that ultimately this would be a challenge for future man to remain man. And so the establishment, as we know, wants to move us past what it is to be human. Brzezinski talked about that in Mutating Man in the very first chapter of Between Two Ages. I'll read what he says. He says that life seems to lack cohesion in terms of modernity. With all of these rapidly evolving events and phenomena, man is becoming more and more manipulable and malleable. That's the plasticity of humankind that's talked about in The Island of Dr. Moreau. By the way, The Island of Dr. Moreau is an allegory for the world from the mad scientist perspective, right? The mad scientist wants to do this kind of genetic experimentation on the human race, and so the island is a microcosm, a mini example of what the scientism-based worldview has for the human world as a whole. Brzezinski goes on to say that everything seems more transitory and everything is temporal. External reality is moving to be more and more fluid. It's not solid. There's not stasis, pure flux, Heraclitus. The human being is more synthetic than authentic. Our senses perceive an entirely novel reality, one of our own making, but nevertheless, it is our own sensations, and they are quite real. More importantly, there is already widespread concern about the possibility of biological and chemical tampering with mankind. That is now, up until now, been considered the immutable essence. In other words, men were perceived to have a human nature that makes them man. And if GMO man, Frankenstein man, is the future, then that means that there is no human nature or essence. Man can evolve into anything. Human conduct, some argue, can be predetermined and subject then to deliberate control. Man is increasingly acquiring the capacity to determine, for example, the sexuality of his children and affect that through drugs to the extent of their intelligence, and modify and control their personalities. This is MK Ultra style stuff that he's referencing. Speaking of a future at most only a few decades away, an experimenter in intelligence control asserted, I should say, quote, "I foresee the time when we shall have the means and therefore the inevitability to and temptation to manipulate the behavior and intellectual functionings of all people through environmental and biochemical manipulations of the brain." That's MK Ultra on a mass scale. And that is from a publication that Brzezinski is citing called Computer Technology from 1968. And the use of holography could be used to create the sensations of living presences or alternate realities, as well as creating the actuality of conversations by beaming lasers into the brain from a satellite. So he's talking about the possibility of Skynet mind control in the future. That's actually what it says. That's not me. That's Brzezinski citing that right there. You can read it for yourself. Not making it up. This is not just some random guy. This is, right, he was a national security advisor to many presidents, Obama, for example. He then goes on to talk about other things like weather weapons. And he says that the future, we envision in the future a situation where even the weather can be modified and become a type of a weapon. And now remember, that doesn't exist. It's your conspiracy theory if you talk about that, even though it's in Brzezinski's book on page 57. But also, by the way, it does exist, and we have to do it to put it into climate change and the sun cooking us all, you see. So there's a lot more in that text. That's just a little introduction there to, again, how the establishment views humankind and what the possibilities are for human manipulation. And what better example of human manipulation than false flag operations? But it goes much further than that, because as Klaus and Brzezinski say, it'll be manipulation of the human genome itself. Head on over to my website if you want to support my work at jaysanalysis.com. You can buy my books in the shop.